Or would we prefer to be able to demand and obtain? And this is the sense of this balance of power, what it would provide for the people of Quebec.
Yeah. It's interesting. We kept on hearing anecdotally about people saying that they were long-time Bloc Québécois voters, but in this election, because of Donald Trump, they were maybe going another way, liberal. I went out in Terrebonne last week and had no trouble finding people who said exactly that to me. I'm wondering, what was it like to be out there on the hustings with Donald Trump?
At the moment.
People who said exactly that to me. I'm wondering, what was it like to be out there on the hustings with Donald Trump?
At the moment. At the moment. It's still there, but it was not put up front.
One of the things Mr. Blanchet has also said is that he doesn't want this to happen again, and there's going to be a Quebec provincial election next year, probably next year. One of the things Mr. Blanchet has also said, a year and a half, something like that. He doesn't want this to happen again, even if it's a minority government, he would keep that going because he doesn't want Donald Trump to step on another election. How important is that to you?
Of course, very important. And at the same time, all the efforts that we put into this campaign will be transferable efforts in the next Quebec election next year. So all the volunteers, all the resources that we made to mobilize the people in the different districts will be able, and it was a motivation to know that we're placing those foundations also for the next election in Quebec next year.
And a lot of the people that we're seeing here tonight will probably be part of the Parti Québécois election campaign come 1 year from now, a year and a half, for sure. There you go, Donna, I'll throw it back to you.
All right, Mike Armstrong, thanks so much. Looking at the numbers there, you can see the Liberals are ticking up. There are 153 now, 31 ridings left to report. They need to hit 172 to reach a majority. So, Eric, you're looking at where the gains and losses have taken place. Maybe you can tell us whether there's a path.
We can't do our thing until we check the swing meter.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, I know.
Wow.
God, did I?
He's wanted to say that all night.
No, I just made it up now. Look, so this is interesting because the Liberals are at 153. We can see that. But the swing meter tells us that they are gaining 11. Now, that 11 is based on the 154 they had in the previous election than by-elections, right? So if you gave them plus 11 on the 154, right now they would be looking at getting into about the mid-160s. That's where we're at right now, that how things stand with what you would expect in the ridings going the same way, they would be in the 160s. You get in the mid-160s, and all those other numbers start to look interesting, too. Think about them being at 165 and the NDP at 7. What does that add up to? 172. So we may be in a situation that one of the closest things we'll be watching tonight is, can the Liberals get to a majority? For the moment, they're at 10. As we said before, they need to pick up 18. Sorry, I went too far to show that. 18. They're picking up a lot of those from the Bloc Québécois, 13 so far. They've picked up 14 on the Conservatives, or are picking up 14, but they've also lost 18 to the Conservatives. So most of their pickups are coming at the expense of the Bloc Québécois. At the moment, you just saw the numbers change. They're at 13. They need to get to 18 pickups to get a majority. So they're looking like they might, Donna, be in the 160s, high 160s, mid 160s. The NDP probably has a chance to win a few more ridings. They, of course, let's not forget, they're sorely looking at that number 7 and hoping, can we find 5 more to get to official party status? But they, whether or not they get there, they may still end up with the balance of power. The Bloc Québécois clearly would have the balance of power. If there were a minority government, you could call that right now, the BQ will. But it doesn't mean the Liberals won't have the numbers close to 172, and the NDP could just put them up to that.
Yeah, to form a government.
That's still possible.
Which is exactly what we had before.
Yes, just a slightly different balance.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Naheed Nenshi, leader of the NDP in Alberta, former mayor of Calgary. Thanks so much for taking time with us. Nice to talk to you again.
Thanks so much, Donna. You know, the last election, I was on the panel with y'all.
Oh, I know.
So now I guess I'm a partisan politician now with a slightly different point of view than just being a pundit.
You are indeed. So, you know, Mark Carney will be prime minister. How will that be received in Alberta, where it's now sinking in that the Liberals will form a 4th consecutive government?
Well, you know, this is an interesting question because the Premier of Alberta, Premier Smith, as well as some of her fellow extremist travelers like Preston Manning, when they saw the writing on the wall, they decided to say, well, we're going to go back to that well of Western separatism and say, oh my gosh, if the Liberals win, we're going to break the country apart. The Premier actually wrote the Prime Minister a list of demands saying she would cause a national unity crisis over a number of things, including plastic straws. So we're going to break up the country over plastic straws. I hate paper straws, but this is getting a bit ridiculous. And I think most Albertans understand that. And particularly if we end up with a majority government tonight, which means, 4-ish years of stability, I think they understand that Alberta has to work with the federal government. Nobody's going for separatism here. No one's going back to that well, even though the Premier wants us to. But we've got to be able to have our very legitimate concerns as Albertans looked at. We continue to drive the economy. We continue to feel like we're somewhat ignored, and there's a lot of work to do here.
Is so much anger too. I know you're not, part of that, but I was just recently in Alberta. There are diehard separatists. There are people who suggest that Alberta should leave Canada, not only leave Canada, but join the United States. There is an element of that in Alberta, and those people, I can only imagine, will be furious tonight.
Some of them certainly will be, and some of them have certainly been fed a diet by politicians, people in my profession, to make them angrier and angrier. Now, any poll I've seen shows that the Liberals will get more votes in Alberta, or more percentage of the popular vote, even in Alberta, than people who are in favor of separatism. So Alberta is not a political monolith.
But the popular vote doesn't get you seats in Parliament, right? And I think that's why we're unhappy in Alberta. They feel like they never get a voice.
Well, that's exactly right, and, we could have an argument about electoral proportional representation, though that would actually elect more non-conservatives out of Alberta under most models. But really, this is the issue, is we've got to understand that we have very real grievances. Our economy runs on a product that we sell at a discount to the global market because we've had trouble getting the infrastructure built, pipelines in particular, to get that product to global markets and actually get our full price for it. And, Albertans will say, and legitimately, that the federal government doesn't pay much attention to us. When I was mayor of Calgary and we were going through an economic downturn, my ask to the federal government was, can we do economic development for Calgary? Can the federal government start helping sell businesses on coming to head offices in Calgary? Can we help work on affordable housing in Edmonton and Calgary, where we can solve the problem in ways you can't do in Vancouver and Toronto? And while people were sympathetic in Conservative and Liberal federal governments while I was mayor, we never really got anywhere. So there is a real reason that some Albertans are feeling badly done by. But I will tell you that the vast majority of Albertans are very proud to be Canadian. We believe in this country, and when this country is under threat from the outside, we're not particularly interested in putting it under threat from the inside. Okay. So I think Premier Smith has made a very dangerous gamble here. And what we'll really see is Albertans trying to come together to get a better deal, but also build a better Canada.
I have to ask you one question, because you're a leader of the NDP, of course, in Alberta. The NDP
yes.
at this point, 8 seats. This is a bad night for the. It's a bad night for the NDP. It is a bad night.
And of course, my disclaimer is, the Alberta New Democrats are not the federal NDP. And certainly we don't always agree on everything. But when we think about some of these values, when we think about the value that I think most Canadians want, they want public services that work. They want an economy that provides for jobs, decent, good jobs for workers now and in the future. They don't want to pay too much in taxes. Nobody does. They want a government that is fiscally responsible. So by and large, I think that New Democrats can say this is what we stand for. And for whatever reason, the federal New Democrats have not been able to make that case. But I will say one thing, and I've said this as a political pundit, and I'll say it as a partisan now. When you look at what was accomplished in terms of pharmacare, dental care, child care in this last government, none of that would have happened without the New Democrats, but they've been unable to, I think, to make that case to voters.
Okay, Naheed Nenshi, leader of the NDP in Alberta. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Donna, these numbers are they're really interesting, right? Like 18 ridings yet to report, only 18 left. Again, those numbers themselves can still move around, but the Liberals need to pick up a handful yet to get to 172. The NDP need to pick up 4. You can imagine the Conservatives hoping the NDP win some of those BC ridings so that keep the Liberals from getting to a majority. So the
Liberals with the NDP right now, let's say a Green, if the Greens win that seat, they're still not reaching majority. That's 169.
No,
I mean a minority being propped up by the NDP.
No, but it's pretty, it's beginning to look clear, as we were saying earlier, because the swing meter was kind of giving that to us. Boy, we could we could almost, well, let's look at the Manitoba.
We're going to look into Manitoba now, because we haven't really talked much about Manitoba, my home province. Let's take a peek.
I think this is one of the places where, yes, there we go. And Churchill Kiiwetinokaski, Nikki Ashton has held that riding for several elections now. Rebecca Chartrand has run there before, and at the moment, she's leading by, it says only 486, which is accurate. It's just that there aren't a lot of votes cast. This is a big riding, sparse population.
Geographically, but not, yes.
That's right.
But so that could be a loss for the NDP.
It would be.
Winnipeg Centre looks like they're hanging on there.
They are. This would be an important one for them. This is right in the center of the city, and it has been NDP for a long, long time. And Leah Gazin won it in 2021 by about 22 points. It's a lot closer this time.
And here's an NDP incumbent who is behind at this stage.
And behind by quite a bit. You know, this is the Blakey's old riding, generally speaking. I know the ridings have changed a little bit, but Bill Blakey and his son, this would be a big takeaway by the Conservatives in that riding. And it's another example that the NDP are finding different parties they can lose to tonight. Some places it's the Liberals, other places the Conservatives.
Okay, and we're going to take a look at Mark Carney's riding. There he is. Not a problem for him to win his riding of Nepean, but look at that, check mark beside his name. This is a man who's been Governor of the Bank of England, Governor of the Bank of Canada, and this is his first time running for public office, and there you have it. He is not only elected, he will be Canada's next Prime Minister. Let's go to David Aiken at his touchscreen. What are you looking at, David?
Well, let's take a first really look at BC. I know you wanted to hear about Manitoba in a second, Donna, and I will get to Winnipeg, etc. But because of the last party to report, Nathan Cullen's old riding, Skeena-Bulkley Valley, I talked about it very early in the night, and Nathan was succeeded by Taylor Bachrach, I think the former mayor of Terrace. I think it was Terrace. It may not have been Terrace, but I know he's a former mayor. Anyways, Taylor Bachrach is well in front with 8 polls reporting on the Conservative Ellis Ross, who was a minister in Christy Clark's BC Liberal government. I know the Conservatives were very high on Ellis Ross's candidacy, but Taylor Bachrach, I remember he told me just before Parliament broke, he's a campaigner, he's got some game. We'll see how this turns out, but right now, Taylor Bachrach well in front for the NDP. That would be a little bit of NDP good news. Then we take a look at North Island Powell River. Rachel Blaney was the New Democrat MP. She stepped down. Now, Tenniel Johnson is trying to hold off a challenge from Aaron Gunn. We have 18 polls reporting here. Pierre Poilievre is out there campaigning hard on the North Island. The Conservatives have very much believed that this is a riding they ought to take, but right now the New Democrats are holding on there. And let's go down to zoom in a little bit. We've seen that big part of things. Also on Vancouver Island, Cowichan, Malahat, Langford, one of the fastest growing ridings in terms of population in the country. I've talked to Alistair McGregor about that a few times. He's the incumbent, leading by a little bit over the Conservatives right now. 8 polls reporting there. Let's take a little closer look at Vancouver right now. We have, these are all NDP seats right in the heart. And in fact, let's take a look at Vancouver Fraserview South Burnaby. It's a new riding. The former mayor, Gregor Robertson, right now with just 1 poll in, is leading in Vancouver Fraserview. We have no results in Burnaby Central. You notice we've declared Mark Carney elected. No results right now in Burnaby Central. That's Jagmeet Singh's riding. Down south, New Westminster, Burnaby, Mallardville, Peter Julian is the incumbent. He's won 7 times, but after 2 polls in, he's in 3rd place right now. And Don Davies is the lone New Democrat that is leading right now in downtown Vancouver. Don Davies, with 4 polls in, is up at 43%. So that's our first look, some potential change. This would be a big change if this holds. South Surrey White Rock, the Liberals with 2 polls right now are leading on the incumbent Conservative Carrie Lynn Finlay. The Liberals, I'm trying to think if they've ever won South Surrey White Rock. If they have, it's been a long, long time. That will be something. Cloverdale, Langley City, and we'll send back to you.
David, thank you. Lots of votes still to be counted out there in BC. Let's go to Neetu Garcha, who is in Burnaby at the headquarters of the NDP. And Neetu, at this point, we have by our count, the NDP leading or elected in 9 seats.
leading or elected in 9 seats. Indeed, here we are at Burnaby and the NDP headquarters here in Burnaby, I should say. The room is largely empty here at this watch party, aside from the journalists that are here to cover the campaign event. Perhaps those insiders are watching at the edge of their seats to see what happens as we get a better idea of what the results will be in Burnaby. But joining me now for reaction to what David just went through is Melanie Richer, press secretary with the NDP. So you were with me watching the latest on the results there. What do you make of it?
Yeah, still too soon to tell. Obviously, some of the results that we're seeing either good or maybe a little worrisome for some of the places as it relates to British Columbia. Some good news to see some holds there on Vancouver Island, looking like some holds, obviously too early, and in Skeena-Bulkley Valley. The message, I think, of the last 2 weeks that the NDP beats Conservatives in BC, I think really is important in those ridings. So it'll be important to see how that holds as the election night goes on.
You flagged to me that the endorsement from Burnaby Mayor Mike Hurley helped Jagmeet Singh kind of get across what you called the finish line in his own riding of Burnaby Central. No results are coming through from his riding quite yet, so we don't know. But if he does not get elected in his own riding, will your party push him out as leader?
You know what? All I can speak about is the New Democrats that I'm speaking to, and for myself, and I'm so proud of Jagmeet, proud of what he's won for Canadians, proud of what he's done for Canadians, and really proud of what he's done for the party. I think the way that he's spoken to people and really elevated people in the last few days and in this campaign will be remembered kindly. I don't know about pushing out. I think those conversations, happen in the future or after every election, and that's a normal thing. But I have full confidence in Jagmeet, and the New Democrats that I'm speaking to anyways do too.
The last election, the NDP won 24 seats. 13 of those were in BC. With what you're seeing so far this tonight, what would it take for you to consider this a win?
Right. That's a hard question. I think it's been such an interesting campaign. Just in January, we were up at 21% in the poll. And that, for New Democrats, is not normal and is a good thing. So to see where we're at now is quite stark in difference, right? I think, electing as many NDP MPs that we can to keep the Liberals accountable will be important. Obviously, would love to see party status so that can continue. And would love to see Jagmeet and other really good MPs like Jagmeet elected to keep fighting for people in Ottawa. As it relates to a certain number of what that looks like, I don't like to play those games, so I'll just say if those things are done, I'll be really pleased tonight.
As political experts I and others have talked to have said that your party is at risk of not forming official party status and that Singh is at risk of not being elected in his own riding. You and Singh have stayed confident that that's not the case. You've denied that being the case. So I don't think we can deny that this campaign hasn't gone the way you thought and that this night is not going the way you would have hoped. What do you do moving forward?
Right. I think, you have to review what worked and what didn't. I was trying to be thoughtful earlier this week and thinking about, what did we do wrong and what did we do right? And honestly, I don't know that actually the priority or the campaign did anything wrong. And I don't think that the leader did either. I think if you remove the geopolitical situation that we're in, which is an important thing in this election, I think you would look at Singh and you would look at the party and you would think they'd be running a perfect beautiful campaign, talking about the things that matter to people, and have been able to pivot quickly when the message hasn't necessarily worked in their way, which I think is signs of strategic and a healthy campaign. Unfortunately, folks were really looking for somebody who could beat Donald Trump, and that may not have been the answer this time. So looking forward at how do we build that credibility, so if we're in this situation again, we are the answer, will be important.
All right, Melanie Richer with the NDP, a moment of reflection to come. Back to you.
Neetu, thank you. We're back with live coverage of Decision Canada in a moment.
With Wise, you can send and spend money overseas with no hidden fees. And it could be up to 70% cheaper on average compared to using major banks. Visit wise.com or download the Wise app. Cheaper on average compared to using major banks. Visit wise.com or download the Wise app.
Is here with me, and we're going to take a quick look at one of the ridings in Ontario. This is in downtown Toronto St. Paul's. This was taken away from the Liberals in a by-election, and they have won it back tonight. Yeah,
Don Stewart gets about 10 months in Parliament. It can't be a big surprise to anyone that the Liberals would win this long-time Liberal riding back in the general election after losing it in a by-election. Now,
Eric, we have declared that there will be a Liberal government. We don't know if it's majority or minority at this point. We know they need 172 to reach majority. Right now, our numbers are showing 157 for the Liberals. So what's your analysis here?
Well, we've talked about this in the past, that once those numbers start rising in that way, they can move a little bit, but it's usually maybe plus or minus 5. We're actually seeing that with the Liberals right now. They got up into the low 160s. They're down to about 158. There are only 7 ridings left to report. And you can just do the arithmetic yourself. You can't get with 7 more. You know what? Meet me over at camera 3. We'll just take a quick look at the swing meter. Again. Meet me over here. I'll show you what I'm talking about. By the way, the Conservatives have picked up 16 ridings in total today. They have gained more seats than the Liberals have. The Liberals we were talking about was, could they get to a majority? At one point, they were getting into the low teens. They were at 11, 12, 13. At the moment, they're at 7. They need to have a pickup of 18 to get to a majority. So that's telling us that they still need another 9 pickups, not just ridings they've won in the past, Donna. They need to turn around 9 more ridings, and that would mean like running the table on the 7 that are there and flipping a couple of more. Honestly, it's beginning to look like mid 160s, maybe high 160s, but somewhere in the 160s is where they're going to be. The NDP is actually getting closer to finding its position still in Parliament as an official party and possibly holding the balance of power. Because I'd say right now the Liberals look like they could get to in the mid 160s. If the NDP gets to 10, again, these numbers can bounce around a little bit. 3, 4 can move pretty much. But it's starting to give you a sense of how it's starting to shape up. Liberals, high, strong minority government is the way it looks like it might be, with possibly the NDP holding the balance of power if the NDP gets lucky and has just the right number.
Well, there are a number of close races, as we've been saying all night, so we're going to try to take a look at those in just a minute. But for now, let's go to David Aiken, who's with Daryl Bricker from Ipsos.
That's right. And Del, it's great to have you here. Your firm's been doing some exit polling to ask voters as they come out of the booth why they did the way they did. We've been showing you the what. This is your line. I love it. We've been showing the what, and you've got the why. Let's start with a leader question. First off, who would make the best Prime Minister of Canada? Right there at the top.
Quite clearly, this was a leadership election.
Yep.
And we're seeing that in these numbers. Mark Carney well ahead of Pierre Poilievre on leadership.
And we can break these down by sort of generational thing. We've been talking about that. If we look at boomers, 56% of boomers.
Mark Carney's their guy.
Gen X says the same thing. Millennials say the same thing. What about Gen Zers? Even they pick Carney. Across the board, all generations, people say Carney was the best Prime Minister. So he's winning on that. Now, what about issues?
Well, let's take a look at which party was seen as the best to lead on specific issues. And the one I would like to start with is Canada's relationship with the United States. The Liberal Party overwhelmingly, and David, I was saying to you before, I've never seen a party in an election so dominate a single issue.
And one of the top issues in the campaign.
And one of the top issues. But it's not just the only issue for the Liberal Party. There's other issues. But why don't we go across and take a look at the generations?
Boomers, they love it. Again, boomers, we keep singling boomers out because they vote at much higher frequency rates than, say, Gen Zers. But what Gen Zers still have the Liberals as the best on that particular one issue. And that very much associated, you can say that's behind the Liberal vote. So let's close that and let's check in on the affordability issue, which the Conservatives are banking on.
Right. Time for a change because things are not affordable. The Conservatives, if this election was about that issue, the Conservatives would be winning it.
And they've got 141 seats they're leading or elected in right now. And you could say those are a lot of voters that said affordability is the tops. Let's break that down. Now, the one thing I note about this, the Liberals are not as far back on this issue as the Conservatives were far back on the Trump or dealing with the U.S. issue. Boomers, they too think the Conservatives are tops, but when we go to Gen Z, Wow, Liberals fall to third spot among younger voters. Just don't think the Liberals are good for their pocketbook.
Exactly. So if this was an election about affordability, we'd be seeing different numbers tonight.
Right. It's like there's, again, I mean, there's been 2 ballot questions, and that's not unusual. You're going to see that. And one party picked the ballot question that is going to give them a government. The other party picked the ballot question that's going to give them the opposition.
So there you go. You see the results. They show you what's going on, but this exit poll shows you why it's happening.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's super. All right, guys. Daryl Bricker from Ipsos. Thanks, Daryl. That's great. And we'll send it back to the desk.
Okay, thanks, you two. Appreciate that. We're going to take a look at a couple of the close races. Where are we going to start? Richmond Centre Marpole in British Columbia. Oh, well, this isn't close.
Not as close.
Not as close.
You know what? It probably was 2 polls ago, but
yeah.
when you get up to 6, suddenly it spreads apart. So that's
The
a bit of a
Incumbent
lead there.
is behind at this moment,
Yep.
but it's only 6 polls reporting.
There's only 2 polls.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
6. It's 6 polls now. But anyway, let's. Do we have another one? Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge, another BC riding. This also, okay.
1 poll, 19 votes, yes.
This is 1 poll reporting.
And the incumbent leading there so far.
And this one's, okay. Well, this is Nanaimo Ladysmith on Vancouver Island.
Again, 1 poll. You don't want to
and the incumbent here is in 4th. It's 1 poll, I know, but that's the New Democrat, Lisa Marie Barron, way back in 4th spot right
He's
now.
likely to lose. It would be to the Conservative who's in 1st so far.
Okay, and in Toronto here we have Eglinton Lawrence.
And
More polls reporting here. This is close.
Vince Gasparo, who's leading for the Liberals, just lost in the provincial election in Ontario and then jumped on the ballot and might get the job as an MP because he just lost as an MPP.
All right.
Okay.
Those were all one board reports there.
Yeah, we do know they're close ridings. We're trying to get all those together so you can have a look at that.
It's the BQ is down about 8 or so. The NDP is down more like 15. The Liberals and Conservatives have both gained tonight. The Conservatives have gained more than the Liberals. The thing is, they needed to gain many more right now. If you guys want to have a look at Ontario, I can tell you the Conservatives have made some inroads in Ontario. At least how the numbers are shaping up right now, they're winning in the 50s. Now, Justin Trudeau won almost 80 seats there. Right now, it's looking like the Liberals may win only around 65. Okay. Now, a couple of those may change a bit, but it's a drop-off there for
Before we go to Ontario, I want to check in with Inuit leader Naitan Obad. He is president of the Inuit Taprit Kanadami, the national organization representing Canada's 70,000 Inuit. Naitan, thank you so much for taking time with us. We know now there will be another Liberal government. We'll have Prime Minister Mark Carney. What do you think that means for you and your organization?
We've already met with Prime Minister Carney at the tail end of the last government, and we're looking to build upon a lot of the things that we started in the last 10 years, but we also recognize that sovereignty, defense, the militarization of the Arctic are huge issues that are coming at us whether we like them or not. So I look forward to working with Prime Minister Carney and this next government on ensuring that Inuit are participants and help shape Canada's considerations on sovereignty, defense, and militarization of the Arctic.
I remember we spoke during the campaign and you pointed out how much we need to pay attention to the Arctic and Arctic sovereignty, and this is the homeland of the Inuit people, of course. Do you feel that got the attention it deserved in the campaign? And then are you fearful that might just be, some sort of window dressing, and once a party takes power, they sort of forget again?
Well, I think the U.S. relations really dominated the conversations across this country, and part and parcel with that is the fear of annexation, also the considerations of the Northwest Passage, which is to play a meaningful role in Team Canada. We also are impacted by affordability and concerns around inflation, on food security, on poverty, and these are also going to be touchstone issues for all of Canada, but we are hoping to have very specific distinctions-based conversations with this government about what that means for Inuit.
You told me that the far north is rarely on the radar of the majority of Canadians who, of course, live in the south. Can you make the case for why you think that has to change?
Well, probably because of the structure of this country, we have modern treaties, and that covers 40% of Canada's landmass, over 72% of Canada's coastline. And we either own that outright or we co-manage that with the federal government and provinces and territories. So we have an outsized governance role within the creation of Canada as a nation state. And therefore, when Canada is imagining what will happen in the Arctic, we are constitutionally protected players within a modern treaty sense. And we also have a huge benefit to the country because we are the reason for Canada's Arctic sovereignty. Our 51 communities in the Arctic and the Inuit use and the land and occupancy across Canada's Arctic are the reason why we can say what we can as Canada's an Arctic state.
All right, Nathan Obed, thank you for making that point, for joining us tonight. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And I think it looks like the NDP is going to hold on to Nunavut in that riding. But Donna, just while you were talking to him there, the numbers are changing a little bit. Some of those close races are tipping against the Liberals for the moment. They're down to 156. The Conservatives are within 9 seats. There are still 4 ridings left to report, but I think it's possible now the Liberals may not get up as close. I mean, for the moment, let's just say it doesn't look at all like they're going to get to a majority. That just feels like that's not in sight. What does look in sight is that the Conservatives will be doing better than many expected, and it will be a closer race to the end. Interestingly enough, those two numbers put, the two parties, the Liberals and Conservatives, have over 300 seats. And I don't know that we've ever seen anything like that. I mean, we have more seats now in the Parliament
than ever before.
But for them to have such a large share, we wouldn't have seen anything like that for a long time.
All right, we have some news about a couple of ministers who I believe have been re-elected. Yes, this is in Sherbrooke.
Elizabeth Briere for the Liberals, that's and she's holding that rather handily, so that's not a big surprise there.
And I think we're looking at Chrystia Freeland's riding as well. University Rosedale, she's no contest there really, I think. 45 of 205 polls reporting.
She was in Mr. Carney's cabinet, even though she ran against him, losing by quite a ways in the leadership race, but I think was a transport minister for in the short-lived cabinet that he had for the time. We'll see what he does with cabinet coming forward, but Freeland winning here. No surprise.
Okay, let's go to Mercedes Stephenson, who is with Senator Pamela Wallin.
Thanks, Donna. Here with Senator Wallin. We're watching the night still unfold. Liberal government could be and looks increasingly like possibly Liberal minority government. If you're Pierre Poilievre, you came into this with a 20-point lead, but you're now facing a different leader and you're also facing Donald Trump. Do you think that this will be viewed not as a victory by Conservatives, but acceptable if he can hold the Liberals to a minority?
Yeah, these numbers are much better than everybody has been saying. I mean, we felt as Donald Trump receded from the picture and the affordability issue came back into play again, I think there was a narrowing of the numbers, but this is quite significant. That trend we saw as the evening began on the East Coast of the Liberals doing, or the Conservatives doing better than expected, has carried on. These numbers are very, very close. The NDP did collapse, and that has been bitter news from the Liberals. So if those numbers change at all through the course of the evening, although there's only 2 ridings left to report, so probably not. I think this is, I think Pierre Poilievre has some time now to figure out what the answer is. I think he wants to stay. We'll see whether the Conservative Party does what is done in many circumstances, which is to, kill the leader.
Aaron O'Toole did not get to stay when there was a Liberal minority, and he didn't have a 20-point lead.
Yeah, exactly. So, but there's been so much tension inside the party, and the accusations of campaign malpractice against Mr. Poilievre. I think he gets to claim some victory tonight that sticking to his own guns actually brought them back back up to this number and the others will say yes, but you had this huge lead. That was, however, with Mr. Trudeau. So I think that they're closer now. Like, we'll know if it is a minority government, and it certainly looks that way. But there's a lot of ridings left to go. Then I think he's got time to think about this. It makes it more complicated in many ways with the issues that we still have to deal with. The USMCA, the NAFTA agreement comes up next year. All the issues we discussed early on throughout the course of this evening, whether it's border security, whether it's immigration, whether it's national defense, whether it's our spending in the north and our commitments to NATO, all of these things are going to have to be wrestled. So then it becomes important as to who keeps Mr. Carney in office. It looks like that will be the NDP if they have enough numbers to add that up. But it does put the constraints on everybody, and I think maybe with the tension around these big issues, it's important that there's some balance there. The electorate was really divided. They, yes, were concerned about Donald Trump, but they were also very concerned about their cost of living and their life and what's going to happen to their kids. So, you know, it's going to be an interesting debate now.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting. Canadians so far, and of course the night is not over, but if it's a Liberal minority government sending that message that they're willing to give the Liberals another chance, but not an unlimited one, we'll see where that goes in coming.
And please deal with some of those issues that have been sitting there for a very long time. As we said earlier, with or without Donald Trump, we've got to solve a lot of these issues ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah. Lots to be done, Donna. Lots of issues to solve. Won't be an easy one for Mark Carney if he does get a minority government tonight. So still a tight race.
All right, Mercedes Stevenson and Pamela Wallen, thanks. We're going to go to Toronto now. Carolyn Jarvis is in the riding of Toronto Centre, and you're with Evan Solomon, who I think has been successful tonight getting elected.
Oh, has he ever? It's a huge party here right now, Donna. Evan Solomon, elected, no stranger to politics, but a first-time politician tonight. Congratulations on your win.
Thank you so much. Fantastic energy here. Congratulations to the Prime Minister, Mark Carney. People are very happy here in Toronto Centre.
So you're more familiar being on this side of the microphone, and yet you made the decision to make a move from Manhattan to politics. What was the convincing, or who was the convincing factor in that decision?
Donald Trump. It was a threat to our country, and we had the right leader at the right time in the right fight, and that's Mark Carney. And it was a moment where I really believe, like so many Canadians, that everything is at stake. Our economy, our sovereignty, our values. And Mark Carney had a moment where he was running, and I realized if I could help get in that fight and protect our country and help build something bigger, I would. Many Canadians have followed him, I'm delighted to say, but there's a lot of work to do.
Had Mark Carney not won the leadership nomination, would you have been running today?
I think we all had a call to service. I don't know what the hypothetical would be, but I was influenced by the situation. This is a pivotal election, and I'm influenced by the leader, who is a generational leader at the right time. I think we're very lucky to have him.
It is a risk leaving the private sector to run for public office, perhaps not so much in Toronto Centre, which has been a Liberal stronghold since 1993, but a risk nonetheless. Was there any sort of a promise made that if you were successful tonight, you might be seeing a cabinet post in your near future?
Yeah, absolutely not. That is not something we've ever spoken about. And I don't think anybody goes in feeling like that. I think, look, 3 months ago, this was a different world for the Liberals. I think there's no sense of entitlement. There's no sense, and that's kryptonite. This is a new government with a new leader. I think we've got to listen. We've got to make sure there's no sense that this is anything but earned, and we should be working on behalf of the people of Toronto Centre and listening to people to get some real results, because the message tonight is it's not a reward, it's get in the fight and get results, and that's what we got to do.
This is not just a Liberal streak, it's a broadcaster streak. That's one for the broadcasters. Marcy, Ian previously held this riding, also a former CTV journalist. Did you approach her and say, hey, Marcy, have any tips when you cross this side of the microphone?
Absolutely. I should say Marcy and Bill Morneau and Bob Ray and Christopher Freeland, all of whom have held this riding, have been unbelievably generous. Look, I would say this, and you know as a journalist, one of the foundational principles is don't have answers before you've asked questions. And that's how you really listen. And my approach as a politician is let me listen to the people in the communities here and listen first, and less lectures, more listening, more results.
Does that mean you won't be upset when we hold your feet to the fire?
I expect it. I've got my asbestos shoes on, especially for you.
Okay, Evan, congratulations on your win tonight.
So much.
Donna, back to you.
All right, Carolyn Jarvis, thank you. I think we're going to take a quick look at some results, but we should also point out what's happening on the bottom of your screen there. The Liberals have ticked down to 154. They were up at 161 at one point. This is leading or elected. The Conservatives now at 152.
I was looking at the swing meters because one of the things it tells us is who's gaining from whom, and the Conservatives are picking up way more ridings from the NDP than the Liberals were, and that's not necessarily what was expected. They were expected to gain some, but they have, in this late evening so far, the Conservatives have closed the gap on the Liberals in ways that I don't think were anticipated, and we have to watch it closely. At the moment, they are still a few numbers away from being able to overtake, obviously from 155 to 151, but in terms of our meter as well, they are still a little bit shy of what they need, but boy, they're within about 4, and they're within about 4, so those two actually mesh. They're not that far away from the Liberals at the moment, and it seems like some late votes have come in that have shifted some ridings, and is there more of that to be seen?
We just don't know.
Are we in for a big surprise? This is a big surprise as it is that it's this close.
Yeah. All right, we're going to look at some particular ridings here. This is Vancouver Island, Saanich Gulf Islands. Elizabeth May, the incumbent there, and she has the lead.
Well, you have to hand it to her. Now, where are we at? We're at 25, but still, she's pulling out a lead right now. She's held the riding since 2011, and give her credit, right? Like she just has been able to keep them on the map, the Green Party.
Oh, and this is early results in Burnaby Central. 9 of 200 polls reporting, and this is Jagmeet Singh's riding. He, at this stage, is in 3rd place.
And here we are. That could be the 12th seat. Look at the ticker. NDP 11. If only the leader won his seat, they'd have official party status. It's early. I'm not so sure the NDP are going to hold 11 by the time we're done the night, but we'll see.
And this is Beauce.
Maxime Bernier in 4th. Is he going to get the message and pack it in as the People's Party guy? Not sure.
He used to own that riding when he was with the Conservatives, but he gave up the Conservatives and voters gave up on him.
All right, do we have one more? Carleton. This is the first results we're seeing, or I'm seeing at least, from the riding where Pierre Poilievre is running tonight.
5 polls.
Fanjoy, the Liberal candidate, was working hard to take this seat from Pierre Poilievre, who has been elected 7 times in a row. This is early.
Well, yeah, way too early to say, but how weird would that be if the Conservatives win 150 or so ridings, or high 140s, and Mr. Poilievre were to lose there? Let's wait let's watch it anyway.
Yeah,
it's interesting because I mean there were a lot of public servants in that riding, and who knows how they mobilize, but I think we need to wait there.
Okay, David, what are you looking at?
I wanted to come back to the GTA. You talked about close races a few minutes ago, Don, and we got a ton of them in the Bramptons and Mississaugas. And I've been saying this forever. If you win one Brampton, you tend to win all of them, and you win one Mississauga. Well, maybe this is the rule being broken tonight. We'll see. These 6 seats here are Brampton. These 6 here are Mississauga. Maybe I'll zoom in a little bit further so we get a sense of them. And let me just run through. These are all really tight races, real dogfights right now. Where the Conservatives might pick up, Brampton West. This is a minister, Kamal Khera. She's 254 votes behind, 70 polls in. That is Brampton West. We go down to Brampton South, where Sonia Sidhu is now 421 votes. That's very close behind the Conservative, 35 polls. So those are the 2 Bramptons that right now are in the Conservative column. But other Bramptons are close. Brampton Centre, it's a 713 vote lead for the Liberals in Brampton Centre. We move over to Brampton Chinguacousy Park. Shafkat Ali has only a 100 vote lead over Tim Iqbal. 100, that's almost half the polls reporting. That's going to be a very close race. We could be here a little while tonight. Up in Brampton, North Caledon, Ruby Sahota was briefly in cabinet with Justin Trudeau, didn't make it with Carney. She's got a 32-vote lead right now over the Conservatives in Brampton, North Caledon. Very tight races up there. Then we go down to the Mississaugas, and we take a look at Mississauga-Streetsville. Reshi Valdez, the first Filipina to be in cabinet. She is behind Sue McFadden, a Mississauga City Councillor, but just by 62 votes. Super tight race in Mississauga-Streetsville. We go down to Mississauga Lakeshore, former Ontario Finance Minister Charles Sousa, 48.9% to 46.7%. So the point is, in around here, we have seen, if I go, I want to do this, just take a look. This is the map, the electoral map of the GTA area right now. This is 2021. A lot of red in 2021. Look at it now. The Conservatives having some success. Not the success they need to form government, but they are building on this. And yes, if you were Conservatives after this talking about this particular election, you'd say, look at the gains we've made. If it's a minority government, we might be able to force something in a couple of years. Again, building on the success they've had here. York region looking very good. A lot of pickups. 1, 2, 3, 4 pickups. If I do that 2021 again, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, blue. So some big pickups there for right now for the Conservatives in York region, in Peel, and even down to Halton, which is exactly what they need. I'm trying to find Kitchener Centre, which is where the Greens had one of their seats. Elizabeth May, we just saw leading in Saanich Gulf Islands. Mike Morris was the other Green MP in Parliament, and right now he's behind in Kitchener Centre, where the Conservatives, Kelly DeRitter, looks to pick it up for the Conservatives. 55 polls reporting, but you can see here it's a pretty even three-way race, and but Mike Morris is on the wrong end of that right now. So there we go. That's what's going on in the GTA. Lots of close races there as we bounce around. Now the gap is 10 seats, 158 to 148. Eric, what's up?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, hey, David, because you know, look at the Conservative numbers and the BQ numbers. You put those together and you get up to just over 173. I don't suppose that's a team that would work together to form government, Conservatives and BQ. It doesn't seem like that's probably likely, but anyway.
I mean, when we get back to the panel, Eric, when we get back to talk to the panel with Mercedes, Gilles Duceppe worked with Stephen Harper on some issues. Not all the time, it was an ad hoc thing, but there were times when Stephen Harper and Gilles Duceppe teamed up to get some stuff done. And I know that Stephen Harper thought a great deal of Gilles Duceppe's parliamentary gamesmanship, whatever you want to call it.
Well, and for the moment, the Liberal Party headquarters is showing 158, 148, a little closer there. We can't read their board there, but the Liberals have a lead of 10, as you were saying, David. Mm-hmm. It's, I think they're hoping for just to put enough space between themselves and the Conservatives so it doesn't have to be as close as it is. But I think they're wringing their hands a little bit more in the last half hour or so. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
I was leaving work. Out of nowhere, this beautiful... I was leaving work. Out of nowhere, this beautiful...
Wow.
Welcome back to our Decision Canada coverage. That's a look at the results in the riding of Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservative Party. And this is more polls reporting than when he checked in before. 10 out of 266. Still a long way from any kind of official count. But the Liberal is leading at this stage.
Yeah, you don't want to, again, you don't want to make too much of it right at the moment, but that would be a stunner to have the leader of the Conservatives, who are having not a bad night. They're winning a lot more seats than they've won in a long, long time. They're holding the Liberals, it would look like, to a minority government here. And yet the leader himself is in a little bit of trouble. But early polls, wait to see what happens there.
Yeah, and that's the riding that has 91
it's taking a while to count.
Candidates on the ballot, so it's going to take a while to count, absolutely. We're looking at some other ridings here. Cumberland, Colchester. This is too close to call right now.
Wow, really close. 95 is the lead, and there are 4 polls yet to come in, so that's
Stephen Ellis is a physician, a doctor in the Conservative caucus, and a former naval officer, I believe. I think he was a captain.
Yeah, and that looks like that could be headed to a recount.
Miramichi, Grand Lake, another one too close to call.
Yeah, a little bit more space there. I mean, 392 votes starts to look better than 50 or 75. But Lisa Harris, she was in a close race last time around when she ran and lost, and it's she could suffer the same fate this time.
Longueuil, Saint-Hubert. This one, about the same number, 338 votes between the Liberal and the incumbent Bloc Québécois.
This would be one of the pickups for the Liberals over the Bloc Québécois tonight. It's actually where the Liberals have done some of their most effective work, is in picking up seats in Quebec from the BQ.
Wow, Terrebonne.
Terrebonne, almost neck and neck here with the BQ and the Liberal candidate.
Natalie Sinclair Desgagnés is an Oxford-trained economist, and the Liberal has just graduated as an economics student. So, economics in Terrebonne.
And Anita Anand is leading now by 3 points. A little while ago, she was just a little bit behind. We are about 2/3 of the way through the count, so there you go.
Not a smooth sail for her at this point.
Not at all.
She is leading.
This has been far from a smooth sail for the Liberal Party in much of the country.
Mm-hmm. All right, David Aiken, what are you looking at?
Let's take a tour through some Western Canadian cities, because there's some interesting results there. Right now, I've got Winnipeg up on the screen right now, and that's the one little NDP dot, Winnipeg Centre. Leah Gazan, the New Democrat incumbent, she's a little bit ahead of the Liberals. The Liberals did hold this in 2015. It often is New Democrat. Pat Martin was the long-time New Democrat for this riding. So we'll see where this goes. We're keeping an eye on it. Conservatives doing relatively well again, this is downtown Winnipeg. Winnipeg Centre, wanted to take a look at that. Winnipeg West might be a pickup for the Liberals. In Winnipeg West, Doug A. Olson, an emergency room doctor who was the MP, then he got beat by Marty Morantz, and now they're back for another rematch, and this time A. Olson is up. He's up by 2,000 votes with 140 polls reporting. So Doug A. Olson might be feeling a little comfortable. We'll keep an eye on that. And then in Kildonan and St. Paul, Raquel Dancho, who is the public safety critic for the Conservative, in a bit of a tight race. I just want to take a look. We have had, as you can see, some lead changes through the night. This is taking a look at as the polls came in. It's sort of flattened out a bit with a small lead for Raquel Dancho there. And then this is a loss for this might be a loss for the NDP in Elmwood, Transcona. This is another rematch of a by-election. There was a by-election here last year, and Leila Dance won for the NDP against Colin Reynolds. Colin Reynolds is ahead right now. Reynolds is a leader in his private sector union. He's an electrician. And we know Pierre Poilievre made paid a lot of attention to private sector unions, woodworkers, laborers, you name it. And this Colin Reynolds was one of the poster guys, if you will, for Poilievre and the Conservatives' pitch there. So that's what's going on in Winnipeg. Let's zip over to Alberta. Let's take a look at Calgary. Right now in Calgary, the only Liberal who's got a seat, George Chahal in Calgary is losing right now to the Conservative. Not by much, 344 votes back with 45 polls in. Now, This riding, Calgary Confederation, this part of Calgary hasn't voted for a Liberal since 1940. It's been a while. But right now, Corey Hogan is the vice president of the University of Calgary, and that's University of Calgary is in this riding, is 169 votes ahead of Jeremy Nixon, a former MLA. So Nixon used to run for the UCP. Now he's trying to be a CPC, and he's a little bit behind there. That would be a historic win for the Liberals. That's Calgary Centre. Greg McLean, the bilingual Conservative incumbent, is a little bit behind Lindsay Lunau. So there's some close races in Calgary, potential pickups for the Liberals there. Up in Edmonton, not so good for the Liberals. The Liberals might have been expected to win at least two, Edmonton Centre and Edmonton Southeast. And that's not happening right now. Edmonton Centre, the Conservatives are ahead by 110 votes over the Liberals. And in Edmonton Southeast, where Amarjeet Sohi is running, 50 polls in, and he's well back. He's more than a couple of thousand votes back of Jagtaran Singh Mahal in Edmonton Southeast. That would be a big victory for the Conservatives, who are worried there might be something going on there. And in Edmonton Strathcona, I would have put this as maybe the second or third safest NDP seat in the country. Heather McPherson, their foreign affairs critic, she's 757 votes up on the Conservative. The last non-NDP to hold this riding was, in fact, a Conservative. It was Raheem Jaffer. Some may remember that name. So that's what's going on in Edmonton, Calgary, and Winnipeg. Some interesting results there, with all parties sort of making some gains or not making some gains, or we'll see how it all plays out. Lots of votes still to be counted, Donna.
All right, David, thanks. And you can see the Liberals and Conservatives, excuse me, the numbers on the bottom of your screen there keep flipping around. Right now, they are 12 points apart. Have I got that math right? Yes. And the Liberals hovered above 160 for a while there, but as I said it went back up. So, Eric, you were looking at the gains and losses, where the parties. Let's do your swing meter. What are you seeing?
Well, let's have a look, I guess, first of all, at the Conservatives. Now, when we talk about this, for the Conservatives to form government, that's that number we're talking about for government. Their lucky number was 27. That's a combination of their gains and Liberal losses. And the reason they're not as close to forming government, based on our swing meters, is they have gained 19, but the Liberals have also gained 7. So you have to take those 7 off of the Conservatives' gains, takes them back to 12. Well, if they're at 12 is where they are right now, for a total number to get towards government at 27, they're a long way from being able to form government. The Liberals, on the other hand, are also a long way now from where they wanted to get to, which was to form a majority. And right now, and that one, they don't have to worry about the Conservatives. They just have to pick up a bunch of seats and win them against whoever to have enough gains to get to a majority. And we said they needed a gains of 18 total. On balance, they've only picked up 7. They've gained 28 seats, but they've also lost 21 seats. All of those are to the Conservatives. So they've lost a passel of ridings to the Conservatives. A lot of those are in Ontario, in places that they may not have expected. But right now, they're up 7. They need to get to 18. That means they're up 8 now, but they're 10 away from that. How many ridings are going to change from what we're seeing on the screen below us? They're 161 to 146. They are just a little, it seems like they're a little too far away from the majority line to get to a majority. The Conservatives are a little too far away from the Liberals to catch them. And we are sitting in that realm right now, Donna, where the Liberals are, as we've called earlier, safe to assume, I don't want to assume too much, but we've called them to form the government. Doesn't look like they can get to a majority. And of course, it doesn't look like the Conservatives can catch up.
Okay, Eric, thank you. Let's go to the Liberal headquarters, where Mark Carney, I assume, will make an appearance at some point this evening. Mackenzie Gray is there now. Mackenzie, how are they feeling? The numbers keep fluctuating. They've ticked up again above 160, but probably not a majority territory.
Yeah, certainly, Donna. The mood's been a little bit nervous here. They were actually just pumping Rush here, Tom Sawyer, a couple seconds before he came to us. So they're trying to pump the crowd back up. But I've got Zita Astravez with me here, who's worked in the Liberal headquarters during this election campaign, was also a senior staffer in the Trudeau campaign. Zita, just take us through how you're feeling, if you still think there's a path majority for the Liberals.
You know, I think if you looked at where we were 110 days ago when Justin Trudeau indicated that he was going to resign and retire from politics, this is a way different ballgame today. today and tonight where we were 100 days ago. And so the numbers coming into Atlantic Canada, holding a lot of seats, a couple pickups. The GTA and the 905 are certainly very interesting. But, you know, we're looking at British Columbia, where I currently live in Vancouver now, which is very interesting and very competitive for the Liberals. If you look at Vancouver Island, that was not an area that really has been a strength for the Liberal Party. I think the last time the Liberals held a seat was Dr. Keith Martin, who crossed over from the Reform Party. And Mark Carney has been there 3 times this election, which I've never seen in a Liberal campaign, and certainly an area for growth. So feeling good. I think we'll see how the numbers come in over the next few hours, but certainly looking to BC for some gains there tonight.
Yeah, you mentioned Mr. Carney's time in BC. He was in Victoria to end the night last night. I know one of the seats you guys are targeting is Jagmeet Singh's seat in Burnaby Central. Do you expect that the Liberals are going to be taking that one?
You know, I think with the numbers are still coming in. I think it's a challenge for Mr. Singh and the NDP. We see their numbers across the country being hard for them to hold, but they've held a couple seats. But certainly, hopefully, that's a pickup for us. I know a lot of the campaigns have been focusing on Burnaby, particularly for the Liberals, but also there are a couple seats in Vancouver. If you look at Vancouver Kingsway and the island, opportunities for growth for the Liberals. Remember, just a couple months ago, BC had an election where the NDP were quite strong provincially, and those numbers, we'll see if they translate to support for the Conservatives and the NDP in British Columbia. We're hoping for a couple pickups, but we've really had a strong campaign in British Columbia.
Looking to the GTA, which is one of the other competitive areas, the time that Mr. Carney spent in the last week around Vaughan, King City, those are ridings that are looking to go Conservative right now. Do you think it should have been a place that Mr. Carney should have spent more time in the campaign to try and bring those seats home?
You know, I think Mr. Carney ran a national campaign. You know, he only had a couple days after the Liberal leadership, and he traveled across the country. He went up north. He's touched both oceans. Certainly, a lot of ridings in play in the GTA. You know, you can always look after the fact what were deciding factors on how to pick up seats. He has spent a lot of time in the GTA. We also had a number of high-profile candidates there helping neighboring ridings. We'll see how the numbers shake out. There's still a lot of tight races, so certainly an area to watch over the next couple hours.
You mentioned those tight races, and in some of them it looks like it's the advanced polls that still have not been counted yet. If that's the case in some of those ridings, how do you feel about your turnout in those advanced polls?
You know, we had a really strong advanced polls for the Liberal Party. We also saw a ton of Canadians vote in advanced polls over the long weekend. I think it was 7.3 million Canadians decided to cast their ballot early, which is a great turnout. And certainly our campaigns were really organized in advanced polls. And what we're seeing is as those advanced polls get counted tonight, we pulled our support in those advanced polls during those days. So when those poll numbers come in, we're seeing a bump in a lot of jurisdictions. So hopefully that holds. I will say we had a strong turnout during advanced polls, but what that meant was that those volunteers could identify new Liberals in the last 10 days of the election and be able to pull those voters tonight. Certainly a riding I'm watching tonight is Carleton. I was there earlier today. We'll see how that holds, but they had a very high turnout on advanced polls as well. I think it was 43,000 residents that had cast their ballot. So we'll see where it all shakes out tonight.
Zita, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Back to you, Donna.
All right, Mackenzie, great, thanks. Let's go to the Bloc Québécois headquarters in Montreal, where Mike Armstrong is. Mike.
This is good.
Yeah, hi, Donna. I'm with Jean-Denis Garon, re-elected MP for Mirabel, which is a riding just north of Montreal, with a big airport still. This is kind of what Mr. Blanchette had said he had hoped for going in, but he also said the short campaign protected Mark Carney. I heard you say something to that effect before as well, that you think a longer campaign would have benefited the Bloc Québécois.
Well, I think that in a way that fear was the most important point of the Liberals campaign in the Liberals program. But now we see the results. It's we ran a positive campaign. We really stuck to what we believe are the interests of Quebec, the demands of the National Assembly that have been ignored by all other parties. We forced other parties to commit or not commit on those demands, and I think that was constructive. And we see the result tonight. right? That's we have to admit it that the circumstances were special, but now it's going towards a minority government, and I think that Quebec has gained some power in a way tonight.
There you go. So the collaboration that Mr. Blanchet talked about, the potential collaboration with Mr. Carney, what do you expect at this point?
Well, we've always been behaving that way. Some people sometimes believe that the Bloc Québécois is against the rest of Canada, but we've always been recognized as a competent and constructive party, and most of the times, or oftentimes, the interests of the rest of Canada are aligned with the interests of Quebec. And I think with the trade negotiation coming up, we can certainly work together to make sure that Quebec is respected in that process.
This is interesting. Being a politician is not easy, and as I understand it, you weren't going to run again in this election. You had a child in November, and everybody's talking.
You did your homework.
Well, thank you. No, everybody's talking about the effect Trump had on this election. Trump had an effect on you running, as I understand. You didn't want to stay home and watch this from the.
Well, it's to be honest, I didn't even see at the moment the detailed results, so I don't think it's a good time to present to you my own diagnosis. But I think that I seize the occasion to thank people from Mirabel for that victory, and I will work for all of them. I'll continue to do that, and I think they're still going to be proud of their MP.
Well, we have a panel full of people back, including Jules Giuseppe, who know what it's like to have children when you're an MP in Ottawa. Congratulations again. Donna, back to you.
Okay, Mike, thank you so much. We're going to look at some close ridings here where the Conservatives are trailing. This is Terra Nova, the Peninsulas. Oh, interesting. When we checked in on this before, the Conservative was in first place.
Anthony Germain has been trailing all night for the Liberals out there. Again, we talked about him earlier. He's a very well-known broadcast journalist from Newfoundland and Labrador. And look how close this is.
Maybe that's the advanced polls being counted now. I don't know.
Maybe.
This is Mississauga East, Cooksville.
And
the incumbent just hanging on to the lead there.
Yeah, when you start to get this late, well, no, they still have quite a few polls to report, so that is a close race, and don't want to make any conclusions yet. I do want to say one thing about the numbers at the bottom of the screen, though. 163, 147. I've never seen them move around as much as they have in this election.
And just before we get more into that, look at Oakville East. This is still pretty tight.
Cabinet Minister Anita Anand, and she's been holding fairly steady now with about a 2 or 3 point lead for a while.
And Bay of Quinte, this is another tight race. The Conservative incumbent trailing by a bit.
That's why, well, these are the races that actually tell us why those numbers have been going up and down. But as I say, in previous elections, I went through several of them, and you normally see the numbers on the screen, on the bottom of the screen, move up and down a little bit by plus or minus 5. Tonight, we watched the numbers of the Liberals for a while. They were in the 160s where they are now. They dropped down about into the low 150s. The Conservatives suddenly looked like they might actually catch them, and then all of a sudden it spread back out again. But I can tell you a little bit about what I think is happening, because you'll wonder, right? Why didn't the Liberals, we're going over here.
Okay.
Why didn't the Liberals do better tonight, and why didn't the Conservatives catch the Liberals? And I think if we look at the seat distribution across the country, you get a sense of it. There's nothing to surprise us really too much. First of all, in what you're seeing out in British Columbia, there's a bit of a spread from the Conservatives and Liberals. I won't get into those numbers. But over the prairies, this is what you would expect. Alberta winning most of the seats. Saskatchewan, most of the seats, although, it looks like up in Desnethe, Misnippy, Churchill River, Liberals may have won up there. And in Manitoba, this is Winnipeg is how it stacks up on the top ones. Those are the rural ridings that the Conservatives win. Where have the Liberals fallen short? I think you can look at Ontario, because in Ontario, the Liberals, normally when they're doing well enough and they're going to win government, they'll win about 80 seats. Tonight, they're winning somewhere in the mid-60s, and the Conservatives are in the mid-50s. This is a very good night for the Conservatives. Not doing as well as they normally do in Ontario is what is keeping the Liberals from getting to a majority. At the same time, why couldn't the Conservatives catch them then? That's where you go further east. And it seems, in today's politics for the Conservative Party, the further east you go, the more difficulty they have in connecting with voters in the way they used to in the Mulroney days, even in the Diefenbaker days. But right now, the Conservatives are kind of stuck up around 10 seats in Quebec. 10 is, 10 out of 78. When you do that in Quebec and in Atlantic Canada, right now they're getting about 7 out of the 32. They're not getting more than just a fraction of all the seats in Eastern Canada. And I think that when they fail to do that, they make it so difficult for themselves to then form a government because they have so many seats they can count on. There's disappointment for the Conservatives in not doing better because they know they're going to do well in the West. They've made some inroads in Ontario. That may have prevented the Liberals from getting to a majority, but they have not done well enough in Quebec and Eastern Canada, which has been their problem really ever since the Progressive Conservative Party blew up in 1993. They have, they've moved that center of gravity for the Conservatives out to Western Canada, and as a result, they've had a hard time connecting with enough Conservatives to win enough seats to form government. I mean, they've had one majority since the Mulroney days, and that was with Stephen Harper in 2011, Donna. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, the Liberals are governing as they've governed so often. They just keep winning, 2 or 3 elections before the Conservatives can win an election. So at the moment, we're seeing it kind of unfold. Some of the reasons why the Conservatives are doing better and reasons why the Liberals are still holding on.
149 seats is not nothing where they're at right now, but it's not enough.
And a lot of that is what they did in Ontario to pick up.
Eric, thank you. Let's go over to David Aiken, who is with Daryl Bricker from Ipsos.
Yeah, thanks, Donna. So Daryl, of course, Daryl Bricker of Ipsos. People have been out doing exit polls, asking voters as they come out of a voting booth a whole range of interesting questions. I mean, there's 80, 90 questions loaded in here. We could spend an hour and a half there. But let's start off with, we were going to start off with, I think, wild card.
Right.
Is Canada on the right track? So this is someone who voted today, might have voted for a Liberal, might have voted for a Conservative. Here's all voters, 7,000 people, and we're not on the right track, says people who voted today, and they didn't throw the bums out.
Right. So this is the context of the campaign. So Mark Carney is seen as the man of the moment on one issue. The Liberals designed their entire campaign around it. It was dealing with Donald Trump in the United States. So on that issue, fine. But as far as the Liberal record is concerned, what they've produced in Canada over the last 10 years, this is the effect. More people, by a considerable amount, feel that the country's on the wrong direction rather than the right direction.
And we can say, folks going through it, boomers, Gen Xers, it's pretty consistent right across the board.
Yeah.
We're going in the wrong direction. Now, I think it was attitudes on Canada.
Oops, sorry, I did that.
Is that me?
That was me.
Okay, there we go. Canada is broken. This is what Pierre Poilievre was saying last fall. He got criticized for saying that, and yet quite a few people agree.
A fifth of us strongly agree with Pierre Poilievre was saying. Almost half of us overall think that Canada is broken. This, again, underscores the fact that people are not satisfied with the direction of the country, not satisfied with the last 10 years of a Liberal administration. And even though the Liberals can sneak in on this one issue, the overall context they're going to be walking into after this in a minority government situation possibly is going to be difficult.
Let's say, I mean, the data that the parties have, I'm sure they're doing polling something similar to this. If you're in Poilievre's inner circle tomorrow or in the coming days, you probably go, see, we were right all along. This is probably validating the axis of their campaign, essentially.
For until 3 months ago, 2 months ago, they were right.
Right.
And that's what people were jumping on. This is what underscores, folks, time for a change.
Right.
We hear that a lot in politics. There was a really strong belief prior to Mark Carney becoming the leader of the Liberal Party and Donald Trump doing what he decided to do, a real desire to change. That hasn't gone away.
You're Mark Carney. You sit down with your cabinet. You have this data that people think Canada's broken. We're moving in the wrong direction. He did move quickly on carbon taxes. He moved quickly on a couple other things. I guess he's got to move even more quickly to really show that his government is taking some of these concerns seriously. That would be the takeaway for the Liberals, I assume.
He's on a very short leash. His priority, and as far as Canadians are concerned, is one issue, which is dealing with Donald Trump. Everything else is going to be difficult for him and going to be difficult to manage.
Yeah. So guys, as we go back, we're going to probably talk about this later in the night as we listen to leaders' speeches. We may hear, I think, at least one leader, that'd be Jagmeet Singh, who is probably going to talk about his future. And that is, in terms of the parliamentary calendar, that, while a leadership race unfolds, the NDP are not going to want to force an election, but they may not hold the balance of power. It's going to be a very interesting parliament, I think.
A very interesting parliament. We haven't seen anything like this in quite a while.
No, indeed. All right, Donna, Mr. Eric, what do you think?
Okay, great. Yeah, it's Liberals are 162, Conservatives 149, and it's just I think as long as there are these close ridings, we're just going to see those numbers just fluctuate.
Yeah, I mean, the longer it goes, you know, when we talked about those numbers won't fluctuate as much as time goes on, because more things get in, more things get a little bit more into cement. But so it's going to be hard now. The Conservatives, as we've called, aren't going to catch them. It was just that there were some ridings that gave us a bit of a surprise there for a while. But right now,
let's look at Lac Saint-Jean. Gilles Duceppe's son running there, and we have projected that he, in fact, will win that riding by a handy majority there, a handy percentage. Let's go to Mercedes Stephenson and the political panel, including Gilles Duceppe.
Yes, congratulations.
Thanks, not me, it's him.
He learned, I'm sure, a thing or two, though, from Dad.
But we're always learning.
That's true.
Oh, look at that. From one or the other.
That's right. A humble politician, exactly. Not always a contradiction in terms.
Humility being the word of the evening.
Exactly. And that's, on that note, I want to go to you, Seamus.
Sure. Let me tee it up for you.
The Liberals being handed a government here, but it's a lot closer than people expected. What is the message that Canadians are sending tonight to Mark Carney?
Well, you know, let's see what happens. These numbers are still so close. We're still watching some very tight races, including my friend Anthony Germain in Newfoundland. We'll see. I think regardless of what happens this evening, whoever forms government, it looks like it'll be Prime Minister Carney. Yeah, you take it with some dose of humility. You know, Canadians are sending a message that they want somebody who's going to be able to negotiate with an American neighbor that has suddenly become a threat. But there were a lot of other things coming out of COVID, coming out of affordability, interest rates that they are not happy with. And so you got to get busy. And from what I understand, he told the Liberal War Room earlier this morning that if indeed the Liberals did win, that you hit the ground running right away.
Yes, but the problem is we don't know tonight because there'll be a lot of recounting, I think.
Yeah, by the look.
So we don't know who will be the Prime Minister, because if he doesn't have the majority, he will have to deal with whom.
So my question.
So if the Bloc has the balance of power, be sure they will negotiate with both parties to obtain what they want to have.
So what could happen tonight is that
It could happen.
We declare a Liberal minority, for example, but then they ally with the Conservatives.
If you look at the situation.
So for Canadians who don't follow the intricacies of how a minority parliament works.
Yes, please lay this out for us.
Well, I'll cautiously take some steps. The Liberals, given these numbers, if something like this holds, they get the first opportunity.
They do.
To form a government. And what they will appeal to the Governor General is say, we have an agreement with the Bloc or the NDP, and this is how we're going to govern. If no such agreement exists,
and we find confidence of the House.
And then we're going to return to the House as soon as possible. We'll have a vote to show that we can govern. If they can't show that agreement, and the Bloc are sitting saying, well, we're talking to both the Liberals and the Conservatives, there may be a scenario, and this would be a bizarre moment, but maybe not, where we're seeing Pierre Poilievre attempting to make a deal with the Bloc leader, which, as a Western Canadian, well, I think it's bizarre in the sense of.
Sorry, I'm asking.
No offense. We've been through a scenario before with Mr. Dion and Jack Layton.
We got along fine.
There's moments where you can get along fine.
I would just Paul Martin, I did it with Stephen Harper. I would ask any party in a situation when they could have the balance of power.
Yeah, so it's a very.
They won't say. No party will say okay.
But
you say, wait a second, you will negotiate before saying okay.
Beyond for power, the question will be for what? I just think for a Conservative leader who has been careful, we talked about this a little bit, Poilievre has been careful not to attack the Bloc. Not like he did the Liberals or the NDP.
But the Bloc has attacked the Conservatives previously.
Not during the campaign, but a lot before the campaign.
A lot before. So do you see a scenario where Pierre Poilievre would be willing to make some of the concessions that he would have to make, things like supply management, with the Bloc Québécois to try to form a government?
I think that any good leader would listen to anyone who would want to come to him to discuss possibilities. Why wouldn't you listen to them?
But who your partner is can affect your own reputation. And that's
in a minority.
Of course it does. So look at how the NDP look at how the NDP have been affected over the last 3 years of making an agreement with Mr. Trudeau when he was Prime Minister.
Did not
had
help
a very, very negative effect on our reputation with a number of Canadians. This is calculus.
Let's make them even more.
Seamus, go ahead.
Who will be doing the negotiating?
Well, isn't that an interesting question?
Right. Who is the leader of the NDP after tonight? Who is the leader of the Conservative
We've got a while to go.
By
We
the
will
end
come
of
back and we will revisit what's going to happen in terms of the leaders. But I mean, Donna, it just tells you what a wild night we're having here. The numbers all over the place. The possibility of a bloc-backed Conservative minority. It's all kinds of interesting things that are unfolding here that we didn't anticipate.
Yeah, I mean, you start doing the math and figuring out who could work with who and how that's all might shake down, and then who's leading which party. Yes, lots to watch for, and it's still all we know is there's a Liberal government. We don't know the shape of it at this point.
It's always a potentially more explosive arrangement. Any party, national party, that would strike a deal with the so-called separatist party in Quebec, like it's just a little bit more volatile to think about that as opposed to the other. So everybody would have to sort of be thinking hard about just what kind of deal and with whom when you look at these possibilities. But the possibilities are lining up right now.
Okay, let's go to Carolyn Jarvis, who's in Toronto. I think you're with Chrystia Freeland.
I am indeed with Chrystia Freeland in the riding of University of Rosedale, who won her riding this evening. Congratulations to you.
Thank you very much. It's a great night.
You took a gamble on December 16th when you resigned from cabinet. You were a finance minister, deputy prime minister, sending a message that you no longer believed in the prime minister, or vice versa in that case. Did that bet pay off?
It wasn't a bet. It was a really tough decision. It was a recognition that Prime Minister Trudeau was driving us all in the wrong direction. And as long as I was there, I was facilitating that. And so I just realized I had to do something. I didn't know what would happen, but I knew it was the right thing to do. And today, when I see a Liberal government re-elected, I know even more clearly that it was the right thing to do.
The numbers are indicating to us that we are looking probably at a minority government for the Liberals. What is the message you think that the electorate is sending today?
So, we don't know the final result yet, and I'm not going to speculate on it, but I'll tell you what I think needs to happen now. I think that this election was an election about standing up for Canada. The ballot question was, who do we trust to stand up for Canada and to fight for Canada? And the answer of most Canadians was, we trust Prime Minister Mark Carney. I think that's right. I trust him. I think he's the guy to lead us. I also absolutely believe that the way that Canada succeeds in this critical moment, probably the most challenging time in our history, is by being united. And so I think it is absolutely essential for our Liberal government to be really clear that we're going to govern for the whole country. We're going to govern for people who voted for us and also for the people who didn't. Tonight, I'm originally from Alberta, and tonight there were quite a few people here from Alberta who came here to support me. And it's really important that people in Alberta, people in Saskatchewan who didn't vote Liberal, hear from us. We are going to govern for the whole country. We're going to listen to you.
How are you actually going to do that? Because there were huge turnouts for Poilievre rallies over the last couple of years across the country. We're still seeing strong numbers of Conservatives, even if they may not be forming government. How do you actually connect with the people who voted Conservative this election? Say, we're hearing you, and we're going to stand for your beliefs as well.
I think it starts by listening. And I think if you listen carefully and you have positive intent and you say, look, let's work together for Canada, you can accomplish a heck of a lot across party lines. And the example I'll give you is my friendship with Premier Doug Ford. I mean, if you look at me and you look at Premier Ford, we're not necessarily people you would think of as kindred spirits, but we really get along. I call him my therapist. We've done a lot of things together. I trust him, and I'm proud of the things we've accomplished together with him. I really believe that with that kind of attitude, that sincere desire to work for Canadians and to set aside partisan divisions, we can accomplish so much in Canada.
How does one celebrate an election victory when you're returning to Ottawa and the Prime Minister is godfather to your son?
How does one celebrate? Well, right now I'm going to celebrate by going and giving my husband a hug, which I haven't done yet. That's going to be my celebration. But I do want to say to Prime Minister Carney, he's been Prime Minister for just a few weeks, and I think we saw him in office dealing with it remarkably well. And this is his first election campaign, and he has been a formidable campaigner. So I think we should all say, well, I certainly want to say to him, congratulations, Prime Minister. You did an incredible job.
And congratulations to you on your victory tonight, Ms. Freeland.
Thank you.
That was Chrystia Freeland, re-elected in University of Rosedale this evening. Donna?
All right, Carolyn Jarvis, thanks. We're going to look at some of the tight races we've been talking about that are, holding back the Liberals from gaining more seats. Let's take a look at these. These are very tight races in a range of places. Newfoundland, Toronto, Quebec.
Yeah, that's so that's the one we were talking about earlier that is so close in central Newfoundland right now, Terranova, the peninsulas, 0.1%, 99.6% of the polls. That may well be a recount in that one. Eglinton Lawrence, Liberals are ahead by very little, but it's only 61% of the polls reporting, so that one really could go any direction at this point. Same thing for the one right in between the two there, Terrebonne. BQ is ahead, but it's very close. Several more that are still very close and too close to call. And when they're, there they are, all less than 1% between all of these ridings, and the polls reporting are all sort of in the mid-range.
Yeah.
So that's the point that's being made by the decision desk for Global News, why you can't be sure where it's going. The Liberals would clearly have to run the table. They'd have to pick up everything that they're close in that they would end up having to win. It's not just holding the ones they've got, right? They can hold the ones they've got there. That's at 162. They need to turn around several more. And my understanding is, even as I look at the swing meter, it's the same. It matches up right now with where they are on the board, which is at 162. They need to kind of switch over 10 more ridings. So they're leading in a bunch of close ridings. They also need to flip 10 to get to a majority. That feels out of reach at the moment.
Okay, we're back with more coverage in a moment.
campaign, but a lot of Florida came.
A lot of Florida. So do you see a scenario where
and a half point lead and a 1,300 vote lead. So
the Liberals had worked hard to try to take this riding from Pierre Poilievre, who has been...
what a complicating matter this would be for the Conservatives, depending on what happens.
Yeah. And this may be a long night because as these votes come in, because...
Well, here are some of these others that are that close. Like this is a landslide. He's 2.5 points ahead in New Westminster, Burnaby, Mallardville. So it's like I'm trying to count. I'm getting up to like 15 or so ridings
that are close,
that are less than 1%, like this one,
Eglinton
Lawrence, and that would be an upset. I know that. David was talking about that riding.
This one
Brampton,
too,
North
very
Caledon.
close, 86 votes between them.
That's a 0.4 percentage point difference, 86 votes. They're only about halfway through counting. Mont-Royal, Anthony Housefather.
Interesting. He's in a bit of a tight, not
as tight as some of those others. It's funny. We would have called it, and a lot of election nights, we'd look at ridings like this saying, "Ooh, that's still pretty close." But there are so many that are within like a percentage point. That's the remarkable thing. Like,
we're
look
back
at
to
this.
Terra Nova, the peninsulas. Yeah.
There's like one poll left to report, a lead of 46.
Well, this is recount now, right?
Yeah, that's 46. Think about that. That's 46 out of almost 40,000 votes. That's how close this one is.
Yeah. All right.
We're going to be here all night long. Terrific. Lots of TV for us to do. Hallelujah. You wanted to be on TV? You're going to be on TV for several hours watching these recounts, Donna.
What are you looking at, David?
Well, let's go back to Lower Mainland, where we were just at, looking at the riding that Peter Julian has won 3 times. I'm going to get it wrong, and I know we got a lot of British Columbians watching Mallardville, whatever. It's right there. It is. And somebody just... Millard, that's Burnaby Central. Let's go right to Mallardville, where we were a second ago. New Westminster, Burnaby, Mallardville. Thank you, everybody. I wanted to come back to this. We just had this board up because the thinking we all had, I think when I say this is me, this is a lot of experts we were talking to, was the NDP vote, people who voted for Peter Julian in the last 7 elections, if they didn't vote for Peter, they were going to vote for Jake Sawatsky, the Liberal. But that's clearly not what's happening. And that I find very interesting, in that a lot of the people who voted for Peter Julian didn't this time. He's down to 28%, and we have 80 polls, about half the polls reporting here. Instead, many of them voted for Indy Panchi, the Conservative candidate. And we're seeing that in a few other ridings. So let's look now. We'll take a look more at some of the stuff going on, Lower Mainland and Vancouver Island. Let's stop at the capital, Victoria, where we have an upset, where Will Greaves, an international relations professor at the University of Victoria, is defeated Laurel Collins, New Democrat. She was certainly one of the fiercest climate change advocates in the House of Commons, let alone in the NDP caucus. I was with both Poilievre and Mark Carney when they campaigned in southern Vancouver Island. I spoke to a lot of people who had voted for Laurel Collins, and they said to me, I like the idea of Laurel going to the House of Commons and advocating for climate change, but in this election, I'm voting for someone who's going to sit across from Donald Trump, and that someone's got to be Mark Carney, and Will Greaves has benefited from that sentiment. That was the thinking of NDP voters on the south of Vancouver Island. So there's Will Greaves defeating Laurel Collins. Next door in Esquimalt Saanich Sooke, Randall Garrison had been the longtime NDP MP. He's retiring, and the NDP thought they got a great candidate in Maya Tate, a 3-time mayor of Sooke. We're going to win this, no problem. She's got a great resume. And again, this time, those who had voted New Democrat did go over to Stephanie McLean. Stephanie McLean has been on the island for a few years now, after retiring from Alberta, where she had been in Rachel Notley's cabinet as a New Democrat provincial minister. So Stephanie McLean, we're not projecting anyone elected just yet. Grant Cool, an entrepreneur on the island as well, 55 polls reporting. So that's down there in the South Island. 2 New Democrats holding on. Jenny Kwan in Vancouver East. New Democrats or the CCF have held this riding with only 2 exceptions since 1935. This is an NDP safe seat, and yet it's pretty close, almost a 3-way. She won it with 55% of the vote 4 years ago. She's at 41% right now in Vancouver East. Right below her, Don Davies, Vancouver Kingsway. He's been there since 2006, and he's only got a 154 vote lead. So this is looking like the Liberals may close on this. We'll see how that goes. I wanted to zero in as well on Abbotsford South Langley, because a lot of British Columbians will have been paying attention to this story, and it was significant in the sense that there was a lot of resentment about the way that the Conservative Party headquarters were picking their candidates. The candidate leading right now is the Conservative, Sukhman Gill, 22-year-old blueberry farmer. But look at this guy, an independent, Mike de Jong. Again, British Columbians will recognize that guy. He's a former BC finance minister in BC Liberal governments, and the Conservatives would not let him compete for the nomination. He was not good enough for the Conservative Party for some reason.
I think so.
But it doesn't look like that has affected the overall outcome. Abbotsford South Langley should be a slam dunk win for the Conservative. It looks like they are winning, but again, Mike de Jong sort of upsetting things. So wanted to zero in on that one. Other things changing, looking at Port Moody Coquitlam, where Benita Zarrillo is the NDP incumbent. And again, the thinking here was, oh, well, those NDP voters, if they don't vote for Benita, they're going to vote for the Liberal. No, apparently no. A lot of them went over to vote for Paul Lambert. He's got 44% of the vote, 41% of the vote for the Liberal, 165 polls in. We'll see where this goes. Port Moody Coquitlam has been among the tightest races in the last couple of elections. And this looks like it could be pretty tight too, 725 votes, but the NDP is not a factor at the end of the race. So just a little bit of lower mainland action, a lot of very interesting races, and I was joking that we're going to be on TV for a long time tonight, but it's not a joke. We are going to be on TV for a long time tonight.
We've already been on TV for
We have. Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely.
Not that we're adding up the hours.
Yep.
David, thanks.
Makes David a happy man.
It does
Yes.
make David a
Yay.
happy man. We were just trying to calculate how many ridings are very close, because we keep saying that all night, but we didn't have a kind of a number to put on it. Now we think it's about 28 ridings where there's a 2% or less separation.
28, and half of those, 14, are closer than 1%. Now, the one thing I did look up on that was to see, so are the NDP, or do they have a shot in some of those? All of those ridings that are within 1%, the NDP is not in second place in any of them. In fact, they're in first place in one of them, so they're actually, you could stand to lose one of those. But that's interesting. Maybe just for a second, also talk about the popular vote. You know, when you're talking about these different parties, considering what they're going to do to form government and who they could talk to, one of the considerations is who won the popular vote. At the moment, the Liberals are leading, but over the evening, the Conservatives have closed the gap. And usually, what happens with more votes being counted in British Columbia and the votes being counted in the way they are, the Conservatives will continue to gain a little bit more. So it's possible that once again, the Conservatives will win the popular vote and lose the election. I don't want to jump into that just yet, but it's very possible we could be looking at that situation for a second.
Well, I think in 2019 and 2021, the Conservatives had a higher percentage of the popular vote, but still lost to Justin Trudeau.
And right now, they're only behind by less than a point. And as I say, when the late votes come in, it's very possible they could kind of go over top of them there without catching them in terms of the number of seats.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to Tracy Tong, who is at the riding of Eglinton Lawrence in Toronto. Tracy.
Well, Donna and Eric, you were just talking about ridings that are just too close to call, very tight races, and Eglinton Lawrence is definitely one of them. Last I checked, the Liberals were leading by under 1%, so this is certainly a riding to watch, and I'll tell you exactly why. This riding here has been a Liberal stronghold for decades, with the exception of just one term starting in 2011. The Conservatives took that one, but tonight they have a good shot at taking it again. The Liberals held this riding with Marco Mendicino having this seat, the former public safety minister, most recently, and they are now running Vince Gasparo, who also ran in the last provincial election just a couple of months ago. But the Conservatives have a very strong local candidate here in Karen Stintz, who was city councillor for this ward for 11 years. She ran for mayor, very well known here. I have Karen, who's with me right now. Of course, the nerves, the jitters must be happening in this room right now because it's too close to call. But you just addressed your crowd and you said this was the best campaign of your life. Tell me why.
Yeah, it's an incredible campaign. The number of volunteers, the support in the community, we put out 3,500 lawn signs on front lawns, and those are families that wanted to see the change that the Conservatives were proposing. And so never in my life have I had this kind of support in the riding. So yeah, I wish it wasn't as close as it is, but it's a campaign and we knew it was going to be a hard one, and we're fighting it to the end.
What have you been hearing from the residents here?
That crime is the #1 issue for many residents. For the Jewish community, it's anti-Semitism. For parts of North Toronto, it's the car theft and the break-ins. And the Italian community is a general feeling of being unsafe, and that's a big issue. The economy is a big issue, and immigration is a big issue.
And considering the voting history in this riding, having it be a Liberal stronghold, I mean, you had an uphill battle from the beginning. Given how close this race is tonight, and if you take it, what do you think that says about what the voters here want?
Well, the voters here want change, and they know that it was a change election and that the Conservatives represented change. And so, I did build a relationship with the community over my time as a city councillor, and, I think that I represented the community well, and so I hope I get the chance to do that again.
Thank you so much for that, Karen.
Thank you.
And so there you have it. We're still waiting for the results, and it is too close to call here in Eglinton Lawrence past midnight. So certainly a crowd, and they're actually all quieting down because I think some of them are realizing that we're hitting from here. But again, a very, very hot riding to watch in this election for sure. We'll send it back to you, Donna and Eric.
Okay, Tracy Tong, thanks. We're going to look at some other ridings that are similarly close. Let's have a look through those.
Just mention Eglinton Lawrence for a second. Yeah. That one is like 121 votes, so there you go.
So anyway. these ones have a higher polls reporting.
Yes, and they're still very close. I think, yes, as we said earlier about Terra Nova and the peninsulas and Newfoundland and Labrador, I think there's like one poll left to come in. The lead is 46. Who knows? Yeah. Carbon and Quebec, the BQ, leading with a 60 vote lead. These are very close. Fleetwood, Port Kells out in BC. Liberal leading there by just less than 1% as well. Vancouver Kingsway. Wow, it's all over the country. Is interesting too, right?
It is.
But it is remarkable to have that many ridings less than 1%, and it's not like that's not an insignificant number of polls. Like that's at least half the polls. In some instances, it's close to almost 100% of the polls, and it's still less than 1%. It is. That's one of the most remarkable stories of the night. Is how many close races there are that can't be called, and we're at that point right now where you're looking at the Liberals at 161, and you say, well, surely you can say that's it. They're going to get a minority because they're 11 away from 172. But the fact of the matter is, 172 is not so far away when you have 28 ridings less than 2%. Like, we don't want to call ridings when it's less than 2%.
No.
28 of them are still outstanding just with those percentage points. And
if most of the votes have been counted, ballots have been counted, then some of those close races will go to recounts. They're not going to.
That's right. And we don't, I guess, still know in some of these instances whether there are certain ballots to be counted that could shift it quite a bit in one favor or another. And so, again, one of the two parties could make somewhat of a comeback based on what you're seeing. I mean, the Liberals need to get 11 to get to 172. The Conservatives need to get 11 to catch the Liberals. It seems less likely, but we'd have to see just exactly who's leading in those 28 that we're talking about and who's in second, who's in third.
Okay, well, the Liberals are certainly watching all this closely, wondering how many seats they're actually going to end up with tonight. Mackenzie Gray is at Liberal headquarters in Ottawa. Mackenzie.
Hi, Donna. We've got David Lametti here, former cabinet minister in the Justin Trudeau government, also worked as an advisor on the Mark Carney campaign. Mr. Lametti, it looks like we're going to be here for a long night. Is there still a path to a majority for the Liberals right now?
I don't know. There are a lot of close races left, a number of races where there aren't that many polls polls reporting yet, or where there are advanced polls that still have to be counted. It is a two-way race, and we haven't seen a two-way race like this before. We're starting to see what we see in the United States, which is we're going to be up late tonight, watching the final vote count. So there will still be some changes. It looks like we are going to form the government. I'm really proud about that. I don't know what the outcome will be, but there will be some changes before we wake up tomorrow morning.
In terms of governing, you've been involved in majority governments and minority governments with Mr. Trudeau. How does that change the calculus for Mr. Carney, depending on what he was saying?
Well, obviously you play with the hand you're dealt with. You have to find alliances in a parliament. We did that. I did that as the Minister of Justice with members of Parliament on the justice portfolios long before we had an accord with the NDP. Then when we had an accord with the NDP, things were even smoother. But you have to find ways, formally or informally, to find allies in the House of Commons, in committees, in order to get your agenda through. And in particular, we're going to have negotiations with Mr. Trump. So we're still going to have a whole Parliament that is Team Canada for the purposes of talking to the United States. So we will find a way to do that.
A number of your colleagues, former colleagues, Anita Anand and Sean Fraser, said they weren't going to run and then talked to Mark Carney and came back. Did you ever think about coming back, or did you speak about that with Mr. Carney?
I didn't, although I did speak to both of them. I gave Mr. Carney a hand recruiting candidates. It's a special bond being a member of Parliament. I enjoyed every minute of representing the people of the Salamard Verdun. I'm very happy that Claude Gay, who I helped to recruit, has won that riding back into the Liberal fold. I'm really pleased about that tonight. Once I left, though, that very special relationship, I'd drawn a line under it, and I didn't feel I could go back with any credibility. So I'm proud of what I did. I'm proud that Claude got elected, and I'm going to find other ways to serve.
All right, David Lametti, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mackenzie.
Thanks, Donna. Back to you.
Hey, thanks, Mac. We're going to check in again with those close races that David Lametti referenced. It's what all the parties are watching right now, trying to figure out who ultimately is going to possibly make it to 172. Or whether the Liberals can make it to 172. So this is Terrebonne. We've been watching this all night.
Yeah, Nathalie St. Clair Desgagnés is ahead by 60 votes, and there are 3 polls still to report. Too close to call.
At Brampton, North Caledon, 209 votes separating these two.
Ruby Sahota. So, former cabinet minister for the Liberals. She's close, but she's trailing. This is why we can't be that sure of just where the Liberals are going to end up here tonight.
Brampton South, almost neck and neck, 83 votes separating these two.
Wow, it's fascinating. Like you couldn't rehearse this and say that's realistic, right? To have so many close races.
Another one in Fleetwood, Port Kells.
Yeah.
67 votes between the Liberal and the Conservative. And Vancouver Kingsway. This is where Don Davies, the NDP's hanging on, but just 81 votes ahead.
Yeah, and still a lot of polls reporting there. So that one I think is you can't take that one to the bank at all because there are so many votes yet to come. But it's going to be a 2-person race to the end in that one.
All right, thanks. We're going to go. That's the Tory headquarters right now. We know we've been looking at Carleton, where Pierre Poilievre is running, and he has been in second place. I'm not sure where that stands right now, but he's not guaranteed that he's won his own riding right now. He does know tonight that he's not going to be Prime Minister. Turia Isri is there.
Yeah, Donna, we've been speaking to Conservative sources, and they say that many of the races are very tight, that ballots are still being counted, but that they are confident that Mr. Poilievre will hold his seat in Carleton. Let's bring in Alex. What do you make of the fact that we're even discussing whether he's going to be holding on to his own seat?
Yeah, cast your mind back to January of this year, and the fact that we're talking about Pierre maybe losing his own seat in Carleton, the seat that he's held his entire career in Parliament, which is long is pretty shocking. I think probably it's unlikely that he's going to lose that, but the fact that we're having the conversation tells you something about how motivated the Liberals were in particular to score that victory. But I think what we're seeing tonight is like a surprising amount of strength in Ontario and in Atlantic Canada from the Conservatives. Strength that wasn't necessarily picked up in national polling leading up to tonight.
Yeah, Ben, let me bring you in. I mean, what do you make of that strength in Ontario?
Well, I think like I said earlier tonight, I think part of the modeling that pollsters use is based on previous elections, and this is something we've never seen before. So this will get baked in for the next election, which, based on the numbers that we're seeing, could be 9 to 18 months away. Because I honestly have no idea who the Liberals work with in order to get any legislation passed.
Yeah, I mean, it's shaping up to be a pretty late night. We know that the Conservative leader is watching the results as they come in a nearby hotel. We are expecting him to speak in the next half an hour, perhaps a little bit longer. But, when he does speak, Alex, what kind of message do you think we're going to hear from him?
Well, obviously, despite it being a close race and still, they're within striking distance, obviously it's a disappointment. They had a 25-point lead leading into 2025. That evaporated. The fact that the Liberals are leading right now, I mean, if you told me that in December, I wouldn't believe you, which is why I don't make predictions in politics anymore. But obviously he's got to, reassure his party that he's the guy, even in a loss tonight, he's the guy to lead them into the next election, whenever that comes, as Ben mentioned.
And Ben, I guess I'll ask you, how could Mr. Poilievre reassure his party, in the face of this defeat, that he's the man to lead them?
Well, look at the numbers. I mean, the numbers bear it out. Like I said earlier, he's been able to not just keep the base, but grow the base. He's grown the popular support. He's grown the number of seats. We were saying earlier, if he loses his seat, not optimal to make that case, but I think he probably has the right at this point to decide his own fate. But again, this is the Conservative Party. The Conservative movement is famous for not necessarily rewarding a better result. They want the best result. So we'll have to wait and see.
And we'll have to wait and see those results in Carleton. So I'll send it back to you, Donna.
All right, Taria, thank you. Mercedes Stephenson has been listening in, watching all this, along with Senator Pamela Wallin. Over to you two.
Thanks so much, Donna. Pamela, you're an independent senator, but you're a conservative. It was a small seat.
Yeah, small seat.
Small
no,
seat.
No party membership.
No party membership. When you're looking at this and all of the infighting that was clearly going on with the Conservatives, some of it was inside the campaign about whether or not to pivot. Some of it was much more overt, coming from people like Corey Teneycke or Doug Ford or others who were openly critical. Some like Danielle Smith, who thought they might be helping Pierre Poilievre, but the comments actually backfired. Yeah. What degree do you think this campaign, and to be fair, they're doing better than we expected and then the pollsters expected and perhaps than they expected to do, but to what degree do you think that discord contributed to challenges on the campaign trail?
Well, I think it's huge. I mean, when people are in this country very concerned about the two big issues, their own economic futures, the economic future of the country, and for some people even the existence of the country, because there was some very dramatic language around whether Donald Trump was coming over the border or not to get us all. But people are living in very, very tense times, and they feel like not just here but the rest of the world is a little bit off kilter as well. So they're looking for stability, and when you see a party sniping at each other quite publicly, it's a bit disconcerting. Now, that said, I think Pierre Poilievre, should he win his seat, this is quite unbelievable to see this tonight, but should he win his seat, I think he will say, look, we did much better than all of you folks that were telling me to change the campaign and switch to the Fight Trump campaign and to soften my, leader of the opposition personality. He can, I think, claim quite rightly that his showing is much better than expected. On the other hand, this is the others who were doing the sniping and saying this is campaign malpractice and all the rest of it are going to say, look, if you don't win your own seat, that was the point we were making. Now, you don't. It's not comfortable for Mr. Poilievre for the numbers we're seeing now. Like it's.
Yeah. Well, what do you make of how close that is?
It's there are so many issues there. Yes, as we've discussed. I mean, this is a lot of public servants in his writing, and he is talking about those issues of reductions and shrinking the size of the federal service. So those are issues. I think this ridiculous ballot issue that we've got of allowing 90 odd names on a ballot is very confusing and difficult. I think that's kind of a separate issue. It's trouble. I mean, there are issues there about that people were putting their fingers on, about likability, about his stand on issues like the truckers and many other things. I know a lot of people in the rural areas that think he's a great constituency guy because he understands. So you've got that tug and pull, right? People who were impacted. So again, you don't want to jump to conclusions, but and the night, when you look at the numbers, our screen there says 161, 150, and there's 14 ridings that are less than 1%. That certainly makes a majority for the Liberals still possible, theoretically. So that changes the game. Then his leadership becomes less of an issue. The party will take them out.
Is there any scenario where he loses his riding and stays on as leader, or is that
Well, I think they'd have to do it in the short term just to figure out what's going to happen, because I think it would be very difficult for the Conservatives to try and form any alliance with the Bloc Québécois. I think the Western base would not take kindly to that.
You don't think the temptation for power there might be
Well,
enough?
there is always the temptation for power, as you were discussing with your panel, and politics makes for strange bedfellows, there's no question, but I think that would be difficult to do. The NDP can't really, it states it is in with 8 seats, can't really help the Liberals at this point, right? So it's I don't know. I haven't seen one like this. I mean, and the crazy part is here he's done very well, not just in popular vote, but in seat count.
Yeah,
and so it's a conundrum. But I think we just have to get through these 14 ridings. I think it's going to be a lot clearer, in the next 40 minutes or so.
I'm expecting to hear, as we were hearing from Mr. Poilievre, Donna, potentially within the next half hour, we'll see what he has to say. But certainly a bit of a wild night that we haven't seen in a while in Canadian elections.
All right, Mercedes, Pamela Wallen, thank you. You're looking now at the leader of the NDP, Jagmeet Singh, and his wife making their way to the stage. Let's listen for a second.
We have to point out, I guess, that the NDP right now is sitting at 8. They had 9 in 1993 when they also lost official party status. They could end up with fewer votes this time than at any time in their history. That's what he's looking at. And losing his own riding.
Thank you. Thank you. We're good. Thank you. Thank you. That was very nice of you. Very sweet of you all. Thank you so much. You're gonna get me all choked up here, guys. Got to keep it together here, folks. Thank you very much. The love is amazing. I appreciate y'all. Big thank you to Suzanne. She's been with us from the beginning. Huge thank you. Appreciate her so much. Thank you. And all of you in this room, you guys poured your heart into this. Thank you so much for everything you've done. You're amazing. We love you all. Thank you. And I know in election parties, night parties across the country, people are gathered, and I want to thank them all for all their hard work. They're amazing people gathered together across the country. I want to take a moment to congratulate Prime Minister Carney on his victory. He has an important job to do to represent all Canadians and to protect our country and its sovereignty from the threats of Donald Trump. Tonight and every night, all of us here, we're on Team Canada. We want Canada to thrive, and we're going to continue to fight for Canada. I want to congratulate all the other leaders on a hard-fought campaign. It's been the honor of my life to represent the people of Burnaby Central. Tonight they chose, thank you. Tonight they chose a new member of Parliament, and I wish them well as they continue to work hard for this community. Obviously, I know this night is a disappointing night for New Democrats. We had really good candidates that lost tonight. I know how hard you worked. I spent time with you. You're amazing. I'm so sorry you're not going to be able to represent your communities. I know you're going to continue to fight for them. I know on how many doors you knocked, how many family dinners you missed, how many nights your kids went to bed without you there to tuck them in. I know it was a tough sacrifice, and I just want to thank, and we can give a round of applause to every single candidate that ran for us. Thank all those incredible candidates and their incredible teams, because no candidate can do it without a team. The volunteers, the staff, thank you to all those candidates and their incredible staffs. One more time. Choosing to commit your life to politics obviously comes with some sacrifice, but we choose this life because of the chance to change the country we love for the better. We may lose sometimes, and those losses hurt, it's tough. But we are only defeated if we stop fighting. We're only defeated when we believe that those that tell us that we can never dream of a better Canada, a fairer Canada, a more compassionate Canada. I have met New Democrats from coast to coast to coast who will never back down, even when they're told that there's no room for them at the table. We make room for everyone because we believe that there is enough wealth in Canada for all of us to live the life that we deserve. Honestly, I got to avoid making eye contact with certain people because then it's going to get too emotional up here. So I just made the mistake of doing that, so I'm going to look away now. You know who you are. Don't look at me again. Almost 8 years ago, I was elected the leader of this incredible party, this incredible movement. I've worked really hard to be worthy of this trust, to live up to the legacy of our movement. Hold on a sec here, guys. Thank you. One more sec. Tonight, I've been informed a party leader that I'll be stepping down as party leader as soon as an interim leader can be appointed. Now, I could not have done this incredible job without, here's a point, give me a second to break down a bit. I couldn't have done it without the incredible support of my wife, Kidden. She has been my rock. She's been my foundation. For the past couple years, I've been regretting that I didn't thank her on the night of the last election. So this is my opportunity to make up for it. She has literally been my rock. I couldn't have done this without her. She's backed me up and supported made so many sacrifices. She convinced me that she's enjoyed them all, but I don't know. But she's amazing, and I'm just so thankful. Thanks for being on this journey. I'm going to give you a hug. Hold on. Also, I might break down this part because, and Anhad and Dani, my daughters, remind me of the future. God damn it, that we are fighting for. That's just because I get emotional anytime I talk about my kids. I'm very sappy when it comes to my daughters, so I just get a little emotional. I've also been supported by my family, and I got to thank my parents who are here today. They're amazing. Love you both. My brother, I wouldn't have been on this journey without my brother. So big shout out to my brother, Krathan. And honestly, this may sound funny, but my in-laws, I literally couldn't have done this without my in-laws. They're amazing. Where are my in-laws? They're somewhere here. Wherever they are, they're here. I wanted to look at them and point at them too. Oh, there they are. Yeah, I couldn't have done it without them. Literally, if you're a parent, you know how important your parents are. And your in-laws too, it turns out. So huge thank you. They've supported us. They've kept me grounded, given us great advice. I'm so thankful to my family. You can't do this work without great people, and you can't do this without a great family supporting you. So thank you to my family. I'm spilling my water and everything. It's getting a little bit. Trying to be graceful here, folks. I also want to thank my NDP caucus. This is a team that together we brought historic change for people. We brought real change to the lives of Canadians. I know that people are concretely better off because of our work over the last 8 years, and no election result will ever diminish that. So thank you to my caucus. Honestly, I'm so thankful to them all. We did some incredible work together. Seriously, every one of you, thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I might break down this part too. Forgive me if I do. I can only do this, and we can only do this work because of a great staff. And y'all just poured your heart into me, into the work that we did. So. Good thing that there's water here. This water is very strategically placed for me, so it's very, very lucky that I have. I might need a couple more glasses, so just if anyone can help me out on that, that'd be great. Y'all brought your talent, your heart to the fight every day. We treat each other with respect and dignity and with kindness, and I love y'all. We're almost there, folks. I got a couple other things I really want to get off my chest here. One other thing is, nothing's too spicy, it's just good stuff. I often speak about something my mom taught me. It's a Sikh teaching of Chardi Kala. And this is something fundamental to who I am. And it means, the words break down, Chardi means rising and Kala means spirits. And it's something that it captures a big part of who I am. And it's the idea that in the fight for justice, in the fight for fairness, in the fight that we fight, we want to have optimism in the face of struggle. We want to have a defiant optimism. It's like this eternal resilience. And this is the spirit that I carry tonight. Obviously, I'm disappointed that we could not win more seats. But I'm not disappointed in our movement. I'm hopeful for our party. I know that we will always choose hope over fear, and optimism over despair, and unity over hate. New Democrats literally built this country. New Democrats built this country. We have built the best of Canada, and we aren't going anywhere. Thank you so much. Love you all. You're amazing. Merci infiniment. Appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you all so much. Thank you. You're amazing. Love you all. Every one of you. You're amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, there you have it, the leader of the NDP, Jagmeet Singh. A gracious speech from a man who has been leader of that party since 2019, who says that he lost in his own riding tonight. His party has lost official party status.
For sure. They're not going to get to 12. And there's a real hollowing out of the NDP caucus tonight as well. He is losing his seat, and probably he didn't say anything about his leadership, but one imagines.
He did. He said he will be stepping down as soon as an interim leader is chosen.
But there are other NDP MPs that look like they're leaving. They're losing anyway tonight. I don't want to speak in case some of them are still close, but Peter Julian in BC, Laurel Collins in Victoria.
He has a new 2017, pardon me, I'm being corrected. He became leader in 2017, as he said. It's been almost 8 years.
Lindsay Matheson in London, Brian Massey in Windsor, Nikki Ashton in northern Manitoba. There's as I say, a hollowing out of the caucus and a lot less representation of the NDP across the country. They have like a single seat in Alberta and one in, with that's Heather McPherson. Alexandra Boulerice in Rosemont-La Petite Patrie seems to have held on in Montreal. I think they may have been shut out in Ontario.
Let's just hang on one sec. I just want to take a look at Burnaby Central itself. This is Jagmeet Singh's own riding, where he is well down in third place at this stage.
That's a distant third.
Yeah, that is a resounding defeat. It's a reminder, politics is a tough business, hey? You put everything into it. He has talked about in recent days about receiving death threats and, he's had 2 young children while he's been in office.
But he will have a legacy as well that he can look back upon. I mean, 100 years from now or however many years, if there's people are talking about the national pharmacare or dental care. This was something that the NDP pushed the Liberals to do during these last few years. They punched above their weight with the number of MPs they had in their small caucus. It's a much smaller one now. It's entirely possible that small number they have could be enough for the Liberals to consider working with them still. In spite of not having official party status?
We'll find that out. While Jagmeet Singh was speaking, the leader of the Bloc Québécois was also speaking in Montreal. Mike Armstrong was there. Mike.
Yeah, I can walk you through some of the highlights from his speech, actually. He described it when he came on.
We're telling them we can't hear you. Oh, that's not.
Oh. I apologize. Sorry, I was going to walk you through some of the highlights, Donna, of what Mr. Blanchette said in his speech just moments ago. He said it was as strange a night as you can imagine, one with 2 feelings. He said there's sadness for people who lost their seats, people who worked hard, gave everything they had for the party. He thanked volunteers who worked during this campaign as well for the time they gave. This was interesting. He also took a moment to thank members of the Parti Québécois, sort of a sister party, the sovereignist party here in Quebec, for the time that they gave. Then he went into issues. He said that the Bloc Québécois has identified in this campaign, and he said that they will now be unavoidable for the government in Ottawa. The weight of the Bloc will be important in Ottawa because of it holds the balance of power. He said culture, aerospace, immigration, supply management, clean energy, language, all of these issues, all these things that they will now put on the agenda of a minority government in Ottawa. He talked about responsibility and how the Bloc will act when it goes back to Parliament, promised to work productively and not to support anything, however, that doesn't benefit Quebec. He said Canada will be stronger with a strong voice from Quebec. And he wrapped up by talking about the Trump effect and the headwinds that the party faced in this campaign. He said he thanked supporters for holding back a wave that came at them. And it's interesting, I've been to a lot of campaigns where people have lost. It doesn't feel quite like a loss as much as it usually does. And I think that's because Yves-François Blanchet in probably the last couple of weeks really set the party up for almost exactly this result, number-wise, but also said that the best case scenario would be if the party held the balance of power. And I can tell you, anytime you heard from the speakers here the words balance of power, there was a big cheer that we heard tonight. Donna?
Well, Mike, did he talk about who he's prepared to work with?
Not at all, and it's interesting. I mean, we've heard from him in recent weeks where he's talked about Mark Carney being parlable, somebody that you can speak to. I don't know how much attention it got outside Quebec, but at the debates, Mark Carney gave Yves-François Blanchet his cell phone number, and that seems to be. That was something that Mr. Blanchet talked about a lot over the last couple of weeks. But as far as dealing with Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives, I remember him saying a couple of days ago, I wouldn't trust them to water my lawn. Why would I trust them with health care? So didn't seem like that would be necessarily a parliamentary dance partner.
He also called Canada an artificial country just, I think, 3 days before Election Day. So.
That was a big one.
That was a big one. All right, Mike Armstrong in Montreal at the headquarters of the BQ. Thank you.
Just looking at some of the numbers, there are still 12 races where the spread between the first two are less than 1%. I was looking to see in terms of where the Liberals are right now. They're in second place in some of those, in 4 of those races.
Okay. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Eric. We're just watching Pierre Poilievre arriving at his headquarters with his wife, Anna.
Maybe while he's waving, because he may not talk for a second, if they can put up for a split second what's happening in Carleton.
Yeah, I haven't seen the latest on his riding. Is he in position to win? There we are.
It's been pretty steady. That's more than half the polls reporting now, and Bruce Fanjoy has held onto about a 5 or 6 point lead most of the night, and it's like 2,200 votes right now that he'll have to make up.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you, everyone. Dear Canadians, dear fellow Canadians, thank you. Thank you, dear fellow Canadians. I love you too.
I love you too. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's with profound gratitude that I stand before you today at the moment of this historic election. Because only in Canada could the story that Anna and I bring to the stage be possible. Adopted son of school teachers and a Venezuelan refugee. Stand on this stage in front of our proud country, offering ourselves up to serve for the future. After millions of people have shown up and marked their X, spoken their voice, and exercised their democratic rights. We could not be more proud, we could not be more grateful for the opportunity the Canadians have given us. And speaking now of Anna, I want to take a moment to thank my incredible wife. She's been by my side. She's my rock. I love and cherish you and our little ones more than you'll ever know. And I could not have done any of this without you. Thank you so much. I love you. Now, my message to Canadians. The promise that was made to me and to all of you is that anybody from anywhere could achieve anything, that through hard work, you could get a great life, you could have a nice, affordable home on a safe street. My purpose in politics is and will continue to be to restore that promise. Thank you. To the candidates who ran under our banner as Conservatives, to the volunteers who knocked on the doors, made phone calls, put up lawn signs, rallied at our events, donated their hard-earned money to our cause, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. To the millions of people who voted for the Conservative Party and put their hopes and dreams in our vision, thank you. It will be an honor to continue to fight for you and to be a champion of your cause as we go forward.
It would be an honor to carry on fighting for you. It was my honor to be your voice, and it is an honor for me to fight for conservative values, those values you voted for. And it will be an honor to continue to move Canada's promise forward, that anyone here in Canada who works hard can have a good life in a beautiful home, in a safe community. That's our tradition, and we'll bring it home. Thank you.
To my fellow Conservatives, we have much to celebrate tonight. We've gained well over 20 seats. We got the highest share of vote our party has received since 1988. We denied the NDP and Liberals enough seats to form a coalition government, meaning and we did all of this in a very difficult environment. That said, we are cognizant of the fact that we didn't quite get over the finish line yet. We know that change is needed, but change is hard to come by. It takes time. It takes work. And that's why we have to learn the lessons of tonight so that we can have an even better result the next time the Canadians decide the future for the country. Canadians have opted for a razor-thin minority government, a virtual tie in the vote count. So I would like to congratulate Prime Minister Carney on leading this minority government. We'll have plenty of opportunity to debate and disagree, but tonight we come together as Canadians. We will do our job. Yes, we will do our job to hold the government to account. But first, we congratulate people from all political backgrounds on participating in the democratic process. And as I said, while we will do our constitutional duty of holding government to account and proposing better alternatives, we will always put Canada first as we stare down tariffs and other irresponsible threats from President Trump. Conservatives will work with the Prime Minister and all parties with the common goal of defending Canada's interests and getting a new trade deal that puts these tariffs behind us while protecting our sovereignty and the Canadian people. I want to thank my Conservative team, my caucus, my members of the Conservative staff and others who've helped reshape the entire political landscape in this country. Conservatives have achieved major breakthroughs tonight. We brought in record support from blue-collar and unionized workers, youth, new Canadians. We gave voices to countless people across this country who've been left out and left behind for far too long. We won the big debates of our time on the carbon tax, on inflation, on housing, on the drug crisis, on crime. Conservatives have been leading the debate, and we will continue to put forward the best arguments to improve the lives of our people right across this country. But we will not stop there. Every single day, our Conservative caucus and I will be holding the government to account on behalf of the millions of Canadians who believed in the message of change. En tant que parti
As a party, we have expanded our support, and every day the Conservative caucus and myself will work in Ottawa to keep the government accountable on behalf of millions of Canadians who voted for real change. It's been my honor to go across the country to speak to thousands of people who shared their concerns and their
Everywhere
hopes.
I went, hardworking people took precious time out of their day to tell me about their struggles, their pain, their fears, but also their hopes and dreams. Welders and waitresses, farmers and factory workers, seniors, small business owners, and single mothers, young Canadians and young families pleading for the chance to own a home, parents who worried that their kids would never be able to move out of their home, grandparents who saw their grandchildren suffering from the shortfalls of our economy, and countless others who are afraid to go outside because of the rising wave of crime. All of these stories touched my heart and gave me inspiration to work towards something better. These people continue to need voices, and I will continue to fight for them every day, and every day we will never give up on fighting for the Canadian people. Thank you. We hear your stories. We will carry those stories with us into Parliament. We will not forget the people for whom we work and for whom we fight every day. Now, I know that some of you might be disappointed that change did not get over the finish line tonight. Change takes time. Most of all, it requires that we never give up, because our people and our country are worth fighting for.
I've heard you, and I took your stories with me throughout the entire campaign, and your stories will stay with me whilst I fight with my team to defend you and to move your interests forward. To those who desperately need change, I know you are disappointed. Change takes time. It's hard. It means we can never give up, because our country and Canadians deserve it.
Fighting for everyone who stood with us today and the millions of people who voted for other parties. And so, my message tonight, for the single mother working 2 jobs but still has an empty fridge and an empty bank account, for the young people who despair at never being able to afford a home, for the seniors on fixed incomes whose savings are eroded by inflation and no longer feel safe in their local neighborhood parks, for those who are now living in fear and terror because of crime, for those worried about losing their jobs because of unacceptable tariffs from the United States of America, for all of those who feel left behind and forgotten, my message is one of hope. Change will take time, but we will fight for that change, and we will deliver that change, and we will never give up on fighting for the great Canadian promise that anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, that hard work gets you a great life in a beautiful house on a safe street protected by our brave troops under our proud flag. Canada first, Canada always. Let's bring it home. Thank you very much, Canada. Merci beaucoup, Canada.
Thank you, Canada.
Well, there you have the leader of the Federal Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, acknowledging that he will not be Prime Minister. This is the 4th consecutive loss for the Federal Conservatives. However, he made the point, Eric, that the Conservatives did better in this election than they did in the last one.
There's never been a caucus this big, like an opposition caucus, 148. It might be a little unwieldy at times to have that. Mm-hmm. Give them credit also. Think about what's happening around the world and how democracies are under assault, and how Canada tonight is a beacon of democracy, and how you can have a fair and honest election And there was the person who lost in a tough race. You know how bitter this defeat is for Pierre Poilievre. But he stood up there tonight, still having to absorb that there are a lot of close races. You can imagine in some other nations where a leader who maybe didn't want to accept it, wouldn't have accepted it and would have thrown into more chaos. I mean, full marks to Pierre Poilievre for saying, look, we didn't get over the finish line tonight. The Liberals are going to win this. He calls it razor thin. At the end, it may not be quite that thin, but you know what? It's not far off razor thin when you have still another 12 or 13 ridings within 1%. So that the Liberals could finish up closer to 170, or they could end up in the 150s.
Yeah.
So
he also congratulated Mark Carney tonight, and we're still waiting to hear from Mark Carney and what he's going to say. We're also not clear yet whether Pierre Poilievre has actually won his own riding. David, can you fill us in a bit on that?
Sure, let's pull it up one more time. He has not been leading at all in the riding of Carleton. This is where we're at right now. Bruce Fanjoy is his Liberal challenger. Right now has 51% of the vote. We have 180 polls of 266 reporting, and it takes 10 minutes to count the ballot because it's that long. I pity the poor scrutineers and the Elections Canada workers. So it's a 2,400 vote lead that has to come. Now, let me relate this. In 2015, when the Trudeau wave swept through, Poilievre, on just the votes cast on Election Day, just squeaked it out. He only won by 3%. But if you looked at the votes cast in advance ballots, Poilievre won by 8%. And that was really the cushion. The point there is, generally speaking, conservative parties, small c conservative parties across the country, generally do better on advance votes. Maybe not this time because it was kind of a weird election. But Poilievre knows the value of getting a vote out. And if we know they started counting the advance ballots 6 hours early in this because of that. Have they reported those? Unfortunately, Elections Canada does not tell us which polls are reporting, but we generally know that the final polls are usually the advance polls. All of which is to say, it's still very much in the air, but this is a great night for the Liberals just to be this far down the track. If I take a look, as I say, no, there's been no lead change all night long. It's been Liberals from start to now. So we'll see.
David,
that would complicate things.
In the event he loses that riding, where does that leave him if he's still
a very good question
of the party? Then he can't sit in the House of Commons, right?
He cannot. Now, there's been strange situations in our political history. William Lyon Mackenzie King, 22 years as Prime Minister, longest serving PM, lost twice and had to find another seat. That's someone who just his party he's the Prime Minister and he doesn't have a seat in the House of Commons. So presumably, in this case, what is the normal course of affairs would be that Poilievre would look to a member of the caucus, someone who won tonight, in probably a safe seat to say, can I have your seat, please? Can I take you out of your $200,000 a year job so I could have your seat? I'm trying to think if there are people near Ottawa, Scott Reid, for instance, and right next door to his seat, who's been around for a long time. Does Scott want to retire? I'm not sure. Cheryl Gallant, also right next door as well. She won again tonight in Nipissing Renfrew. What used to be called Nipissing Renfrew now is Algonquin Renfrew or something. I don't know. Somebody's going to have to step aside if Poilievre doesn't win.
Hey, David, I just wanted to point out that we're waiting to see Mark Carney. We should see pictures of him and his wife shortly. We understand he's going to speak very soon. While we wait for that, I just wanted to go back to Mark Carney, or to Pierre Poilievre for a second. He talked about, the party has to learn lessons from tonight.
What were those lessons? That's what we wanted. The first question I think we're all going to ask it if he has a press conference tomorrow. What were those lessons? Were the lessons maybe it wasn't such a good idea to ban the media from your tour so that we couldn't report as much as he might have wanted on his activities, thoughts, and views? The fact that he decided during his campaign that he was going to give a lot of questions and time to what you'd call the alternative conservative media outlets and not to those serving sort of mainstream Canadians like us. This is not sour grapes. He can do whatever he wants. But a lot of conservatives have told me that media strategy, in the end, on close races, where there were close races, that wasn't so helpful. There was, at least nobody could see the upside to it. It wasn't a winning condition. Even Donald Trump. Donald Trump loves to have the press around, travels and flies around with them all the time because he loves to get his views across. So that's one thing I think that people are going to look at and say, maybe maybe you got to change that.
I wonder if some of the other, he sort of lost some of it towards the end of the campaign, but the sort of, critics said he was sort of a Trump light,
52%. There were polls on this. 52% of Canadians said Poilievre is too much like Donald Trump. Yeah. It's probably unfair to Poilievre because he has said, I don't agree with Trump. Trump himself, in an interview with Fox News, said that he would prefer the Liberal to win. That was Trump's words. That was an interview with Laura Ingraham. But nonetheless,
I believe everything that Trump says.
I know. It does, whatever it is, Poilievre, for whatever reason, a lot of Canadians looked at him and saw the slogans, saw somebody talking about his crowd sizes. Poilievre was doing that for a while, did big crowds, and so did Donald Trump, and they both like to talk about crowd sizes. Too much reminded them of some Trumpy stuff. How does he shed that image now? That's the key. If you're in a conservative backroom and saying, okay, how are we going to change that? And there are those, I can tell you because I've been speaking to them today, who do have some ideas about how they can modify Poilievre's image to one day beat Carney.
Okay, David, we're just going to break away for 1 sec to go to Mackenzie Gray, who is at Liberal headquarters right next door to where Pierre Poilievre ran tonight. Mackenzie.
Yeah, hi Donna. We've been talking to some Liberals here in the room about Pierre Poilievre and Carleton, that riding where Bruce Fanjoy, the Liberal candidate, is there. They think that they have handily won the advance vote in this situation. They're not sure if that has been counted yet. Of course, it can be counted and tabulated into the votes at different points in time, but if that vote is still outstanding and they're not sure about that at that point, they feel confident that they actually can win this seat in this situation. Now, we should say for the past number of days, I've been talking with Liberals while out on the campaign with Mark Carney. They have consistently said that they did not think that they were going to win this seat, but they had been pouring substantial resources into helping Bruce Fanjoy, Knock and Carleton, many senior people who've been working in the Liberal war room. When their shifts were done there, were being sent out to Carleton to knock out there. Also, Mark Carney's wife, Diana Fox Carney, had also been door knocking in that riding. So the Liberals in the past few days have really been targeting that and hoping to try to win that. And just one other thing about Mark Carney and voting as well, too. He actually couldn't vote for himself today, Donna. He doesn't live in the riding of Nepean. He actually lives in Rockcliffe, a nice neighborhood here in Ottawa. So he had to vote likely for Mona Forte, who is the candidate in Ottawa, Vanier, Gloucester. So a little interesting wrinkle there, but very close in this race in Carleton. And the Liberals think they've got a shot at this point in time.
And Mac, what about Mark Carney right now? Where is he? Are we expecting to hear from him soon?
Yeah, we're expecting probably within the next couple minutes. You can just see behind us here, folks have come onto the stage. They weren't out here until Pierre Poilievre finished speaking. So we should be hearing from Mark Carney. I would expect that he's not going to be saying one way or another. If he expects it to be a majority or a minority government at this point in time, that advance vote is what the Liberals are really holding on to at this point in time. We did talk about it earlier, but we've seen in by-elections recently in very tight ones that it's not till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes that advance vote gets posted, and the Liberals really do feel that they have the advantage when it comes to the advance vote numbers.
Yeah, okay. Mackenzie Gray, thanks. We're going to come back to Liberal headquarters as soon as we lay eyes on Mark Carney. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Talk about these numbers for a second. So the Liberals, for the moment, are at 165, the Conservatives 147, so that doesn't seem so close. But you wonder, well, are the Liberals within striking distance of a majority? Because we haven't called that yet. I looked at the races that are less than 1%. There are 14 of them. 14 races less than 1%. The Liberals are involved in all 14 of them. They're leading in 9 of them. They're in second place in 5 of them. So let's take it to the extreme. Let's say the Liberals lost all the close ones that they're in front. That would drop them into the 150s. Let's say instead they won all of these. That would take them up to like 170. And that's not then counting the ones where they are close within 2%. So there's still
still a path?
Well, I'd have to see the numbers like between 1% and 2%. It means they would have to literally, like playing billiards or something, they'd have to run the table and win everything there is to win right now.
Yeah, I think we've got some of the numbers, some of the close ridings.
And it would seem hard because there are so many so close. How could they all fall the same direction?
Yeah, well, this one is NDP, Liberal, so this...
Yep, this is one of them where they're in second place. As I say, there are 5 of them where they are within 1%, and this is one of them where they're within 1%, and they are in second place, but so that's not over yet. 8 polls still to come in. We flashed Terrebonne there for just a second, and up it comes again.
Oh, this is just complete neck and neck.
Yeah. I mean, it is a 28-vote lead It comes out to 38.7 to 38.7. That's more than 46,000 votes and a 28 vote difference. Isn't that amazing?
It is.
One more poll to count.
And Terra Nova, the Peninsula's.
This one hasn't changed in the last, well, quite a little while. There's been one poll yet to report, and Anthony Germain's lead is,
46 votes between them.
I've got Brampton, North Caledon on my screen because I'm doing the same thing, hunting for close ones. And here's Ruby Sahota, a Liberal incumbent. She's 168 votes back. And we've got still 35 polls to report. I'm getting a little punch drunk too because we've been up so late doing math all night long. Let me take a look at here. Look at the lead changes we've had all night long in Brampton, North Caledon. Wow. It's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And again, it really does come down to if the Liberals, as it was interesting to hear Mackenzie talk about how Liberals are confident in Bruce Fanjoy's advance polls. And I think, again, that the Liberals feel the advance vote did tend to be older voters, boomers, who everybody says is probably inclined to vote for the Liberals. So in a riding like Brampton, North Caledon, if that last thing that comes in, the last few polls, who knows? I mean, you're right. Eric, I think it was you, said, it could be things posted at 2 or 3 in the morning. And we know it's going to be a Liberal government. We have not, Global has not declared a majority or a minority government yet because there's too many votes still out there. Too much is on the margin. It could be a 173 vote majority. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's at least a minority government, we can say. Like it is a Liberal. That's what we mean when we say it's a Liberal government. It's at least a minority.
I think one of the things, just to go back to Poilievre's comments for a bit, one of the things he talked to is we got support where we've never had it before. Private sector unions. Okay. People who you might think would vote New Democrat. And again, I'm going to take a look. This is one of the, we talked about some of the big New Democrats in BC losing. Down there in Windsor West, Brian Massey is in 3rd place. Almost all the votes are in. And the Conservative won. This is a private sector union-friendly sitting. Car parts, car makers, you made it. Brian Massey has been there since Herb Gray retired, since 2002, and it just wasn't good enough for him tonight. And I see there's Diana Carney coming up to speak. So this is I just want to finish by saying these folks went to the Conservatives.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
Thank you, David.
58% of the vote went to the Liberal and NDP together. So
all right.
The vote split.
Let's listen to Diana Fox Carney, wife of Mark Carney.
Good evening, Canada. Bonsoir, Canada, and merci.
Good evening, Canada, and thank you for voting.
I'm so grateful to you. Thank you for supporting your Liberal candidates, and thank you for choosing my husband's vision of a positive, unified, and above all, a strong country. Over the past few weeks, Mark and I have had the enormous privilege of meeting so many people across this great country. Everywhere we've visited, we've been energized by the passion, the commitment, and the kindness and belief that we have encountered, not to mention the beauty and diversity of this amazing country. As we've traced a path from winter into spring, through all this, I've watched my husband listen and learn. I've watched him inspire confidence and take on new skills. But most of all, I've seen him remain true to what he's always been: consistent, compassionate, loyal, and driven by an exceptionally strong set of values. He's thoughtful, respectful, and honest. And I think and hope that you now have come to appreciate that alongside his capacity for dealing with the most serious of matters, he has a great mind for trivia, a wicked sense of humor, and a wonderful smile. He's been that way since our very first date, back when we were young grad students, when we went to that dinner, and he said to me, He stopped the conversation and he said to me, I want you to know I'm committed to move back to Canada and to work in the public service. So here we are. As his partner, I could not be more proud of him. And as a Canadian, I'm so thankful that the man I met more than 30 years ago has held tight to that strong commitment to service. I'm lucky to have him. We're lucky to have him now more than ever. Without further ado, it's my great pleasure to introduce my husband, the Prime Minister who will make Canada strong and Canada for.
That is Nepean. That is the spirit of Nepean behind me right there. Thank you. Bonsoir tout le monde.
Good evening, everyone.
Bonsoir.
Good evening.
Quel bonsoir.
What a great night.
I have a question. Who's ready? Who's ready? Who's ready to stand up for Canada with me? And who's ready? Who's ready to build Canada strong? Okay, we got that settled. That's good. Avant de commencer,
before we start, I'd like to congratulate the other leaders for their campaigns and for the extraordinary amount of work that went into it. I want to thank them for their service for Canada today and in the future.
I want to thank the leaders of the other parties. I want to salute the contribution of Jagmeet Singh. I noticed his remarks. Leading on progressive values. Elizabeth May, who will be returning. François Blanchet. And I want to congratulate Pierre Poilievre on a hard-fought, fair, good campaign, his commitment to the country that we both love. They all have many, many more contributions to our land. Thank you, Diana. Thank you, Diana, for your work on this campaign. Thank you, Diana, for the commitment and compassion you bring to everything that you do. Tonight simply would not have been possible without you and without the support of our 4 children who inspire me to service every single day. I also want to salute the women and men who put their name on the ballot from all parties. Thank you for standing up to serve our country at this critical time. And for those who were elected, particularly those Liberals who were elected, I am looking forward to working together to deliver for Canadians. Bruce says, Bruce. And Bruce, yes, Bruce Vanjoy. I'm looking forward to working with Bruce Vanjoy. Fantastic. He will be a great MP. We're going to have fun tonight. Yes, we're going to have fun. Bien sûr. Je tiens à remercier les milliers de bénévoles
the thousands of volunteers here and across Canada who gave up their time to knock on doors, to make calls, and to speak to their neighbors and members of their communities to give us a strong government.
You know, I chose to enter politics because I felt we needed big changes in this country. But big changes guided by strong Canadian values. Values that I learned at the dinner table from my parents, Bob and Verley, and from my siblings. I appreciate this more in retrospect from my siblings. My siblings, Brenda, Sean, and Brian. Values that I learned on the ice from my coaches. Values that have been reinforced as I've met with Canadians across this great country. And those include three values that I want to highlight this evening. Humility. It's Canada after all. Ambition. It's Canada after all. And unity. It's Canada. I love you. Right back. Right back. These are good values. These are Canadian values. Values that I will do my best. I'm just getting worked up here. These are values that I will do my best to uphold every day as your Prime Minister. You betcha. Okay, well, you have to judge after this next section because I am going to begin with the value of humility and by admitting that I have much to be humble about. It's true. Over my long, that's not an applause line, it's just a statement of fact. Over my long career, I have made many mistakes, and I will make more. But I commit to admitting them openly, to correcting them quickly, and always learning from them. Humility underscores the importance of governing as a team in cabinet and in caucus, and working constructively with all parties across Parliament, of working in partnership with the provinces and the territories, and with Indigenous peoples. And at this time, it underscores the value of bringing together labor, business, civil society, to advance the nation-building investments we need to transform our economy. Humility is also about recognizing that one of the responsibilities of government is to prepare for the worst, not hope for the best. As I've been warned, America wants our land, our resources, our water, our country. Never. But these are not idle threats. President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us. That will never ever happen. But we also must recognize the reality that our world has fundamentally changed. There is also, for me, as I stand before you this evening, humility in recognizing that, well, many have chosen to place your trust in me, trust in the Liberal Party. Millions of our fellow citizens preferred a different outcome. And my message to every Canadian is this: no matter where you live, no matter what language you speak, no matter how you voted, I will always do my best to represent everyone who calls Canada home. You know, during this short campaign, I went to Saskatchewan and Alberta a couple of times, even though, you know, we're Liberals. It's tough. It's tough out there. I grew up there. But I went because I intend to govern for all Canadians. And au cours de cette campagne,
and throughout this campaign, many Quebecers opened their doors to me and gave me their trust. And I thank them.
La langue française.
The French language, the culture in Quebec are at the heart of Canadian identity. They define our country and the country I love. And I will defend them relentlessly.
Avec la forte équipe de députés
With
québécois
the strong
que vous venez
Quebec
d'envoyer à
team
Ottawa,
you'll be
nous
sending
allons
to
faire en sorte
Ottawa,
que le Québec
we'll make
continue
sure Quebec
de prospérer
continues
au
to
sein
prosper
de Canada
within a strong Canada.
Et que vous soyez un travailleur
Whether
des sables bitumineux à
you
Fort
work
Mac,
in the oil sands in
infirmière
Fort
de
Mac,
Joliette,
or whether you're a nurse in Joliette or an accountant in Toronto, there are a lot of accountants in Toronto. My government will work for all of you.
As we come here after this most consequential election, let's put an end to the division and anger of the past. We are all Canadian, and my government will work for and with everyone. I began with humility, but Canadians are ambitious. And now, more than ever, it is a time for ambition. It is a time to be bold, to meet this crisis with overwhelming positive force of a united Canada. Because we are going to build, baby, build. Exactly. Throughout, we're building now. We've gotten over that bit. Throughout our history, there have been turning points. Throughout our history, there have been turning points when the world's fortunes were in the balance. That was the case at the start of the Second World War, just as it was at the end of the Cold War. And each time, Canada chose to step up.